Hello, welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of Grapple. I'm Benno.
And I'm Gareth.
I thought I retired that. I'm tired.
I
We're
was gonna,
back after
I
a
was
couple
going
of...
to say, you're back to being the official podcast and not the thousands of bootleg versions of Grapple.
A factory reset, Gareth, after 2 weeks away, and hopefully people have missed us. Obviously, we had in the feed over the last couple of weeks the long, very long, but I think well received Grapple Hall of Fame show. Thank you to everyone for the positive thoughts on that. I know a lot of people are still winging their way through the second half of that, so I'll try not to give too many spoilers outside. If he's not here, so I can say 10 for Roman Reigns' charisma and mic skills when I listen back to that. On the flight over to Toronto. 8 in ring. That's actually worse. You know, it's not a 10, but it's still worse, isn't it? The 8 in ring. Although I did manage, Gareth, again, more spoilers to what while I was in Toronto, managed to, I went and found the Bret Hart plaque again for the Canadian Hall of Fame, laid the grapple hat on, and we got the full ceremony, Gareth. I'll have to find a way to do that for the other 4 men who made it to the top 5 of the Grapple Hall of Fame.
Bit more respect this time.
It was too cold to wear those shorts, mate. I couldn't have pulled it off. It wasn't going to happen. But yeah, honestly, fucking hell, what a labour that was. Like, it worked out well. It wasn't originally our plan. We were going to take last week off. Obviously, if you haven't heard the pre-show, we just did a bit of a catch-up with me talking my New York and Toronto trip, Gareth talking Brussels, and obviously we had JP on, who was once again a father to young Molly, which happened in the last couple of weeks as well. So we've been a little bit all over the place. But yeah, congrats to JP and Vicky. And if you want to hear JP talk through the early days of being a girl dad, you can hear that over on the pre-show as well. But it kind of all lined up nicely, JP, for people to go back and listen to that Grapple Hall of Fame and that hard work that we put in over those somehow 6.5 hours recording that we did.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned that, isn't it? To make that a double header over a 2-week period.
I honestly didn't. I wasn't setting you up. I wasn't lying. Being like, yeah, lads, we're going to go 2 hours here, and then I kept you on the line for 6. It's just what happens when we get talking, when we come up with wild ideas, like trying to put together a points Hall of Fame. But you know, you're in my. Me and you, Gareth, I was shocked at how many we were pretty much in line with those two. But maybe that's just because me and you actually followed the rules, unlike those other 2 reprobates. But we did. The rules that apparently weren't laid out, Gareth, despite the fact that I said them on air right before. Anywho, we're sticklers for that, Gareth, and we did the mathematical side of it, and I feel like it stands up against any Hall of Fame that's out there.
Analysts, mate, looking at them numbers and treating them with the detail and the respect that they were. Horizontally and vertically, looking up and down those lists just to make sure that if somebody's an 8, then person X has to be a 7, and definitely isn't of the same.
If
value.
Roman Reigns is a 10 on promo, like does that make like Steve Austin on the Rock 11s? Does that make CM Punk 10.5? Like, what are we doing? Matt say we'll corner him on that next time he's on. Get him on Brett.
Tried to make that point on the air as well, but didn't want to reveal anything for things that were coming up. It was like setting your stall out there when somebody low down the list's getting a 10 here on things. There's nowhere to go, is there? Like, but hey-o.
Explains why he made the Observer Hall of Fame now. I understand it now. You just need Meltzer and his readers and the journalists who vote on that. We're just doing Matty Mats. That's how that works. Nah, it's fine. I
either be older, mate. I either be older. He'll be listening to this somewhere, and suddenly we'll see his face pop up at the bottom of the screen here, kind of thing. His ears will be burning.
Well, that's out there. If you haven't managed to work your way through it, obviously, we're giving people some time to do that. But while I was away, you did the Must See mixtape over on the Patreon as well with Mark Buckelty of Must See Matches fame as well. Just saying, I've heard the start of that while I was away. Very much enjoyed it. You two came away fans of Joshi. Matty sat there and was watching 70s and 80s Japanese wrestling. It was worth it as a homework assignment if nothing else.
Honestly, it was a cracking show. Like, it was one that I was looking forward to doing beforehand anyway. And then I think just because I think the way it worked out and me not liking some things that, I don't know, maybe Mark, probably Matty, maybe thought I would have done, and then like vice versa, then you know, in reverse, like been surprised that Matty liking some stuff as well. I think because it was such sort of a diverse mixed list, different promotions, different time periods, different styles of matches and things. It was cracking to work through them and kind of I don't know, be able to form opinions on some of these matches. So I'd definitely recommend. Obviously give them the show a listen. But I think, if you're in our Discord, we've got the full list there. If you can click on all the links and watch them on YouTube and stuff. Definitely worth giving them a watch if you're going to go back and listen to that show as well, because I think it's less than 3 hours watch overall, which is pretty rare for one of these things. We normally like drowning in 8 hours worth of content or something like that. So it's sort of a good chance to go back and listen as watch and listen as well. But brilliant time, and thanks again to Mark for the selection, because I had a whole lot of fun doing that one.
We've had a nice varied month. Obviously, we had that, and then we had Eddie Sarbenz dragging us, kicking and screaming through WRP Underground, which is another great show. The polar opposite of type of podcast that we've got on the feed this month. And yet, November isn't over. We are about to me and Matty will be recording this week. If you are missing Matty, me, him, and Michael Hamflett will be rounding out at least this part of the 2001 Fed Odyssey with Survivor Series 2001. And expect me and Matty to argue over probably Raising Cane's this week, and talk a little bit more about my America trip I'm expecting with those two. And on that note, obviously it's not grapple related, but if you have been enjoying the stuff with us and Michael Hamflett, me and Michael have launched a little side project you might have heard a little bit about. I haven't really plugged it on these airwaves too much. The official launch is this weekend, December the 1st. We like it to be, we're wrestling fans, got it, so we like it, solid dates. The 1st works out perfectly. But Benno and Hamflett in Your House, a podcast where me and Michael Hamflett go through all of the WWF In Your Houses from 1995 through to 1997/8ish. We haven't fully decided where it's ended yet. We're saying it's from the bust to the boom is the catchphrase that we're going through, and we're going to find out whether Michael's one, who 100% would tell you today that those In Your Houses and that run of WWF is fantastic and unbelievable. I'm one, as you know, who was very much a Sean kid in 1995 and 96, and I remember it being great. But was it? It's kind of the way that I'm approaching this. So it's a lot of not as nostalgia for me back when we first got Sky in the house and first started watching the WWF in the mid 90s. And we have a bit of a teaser episode already up on the feed, where me and Michael go through our various fandoms and our upbringings in the 90s, where there's a lot of feels like a lot of common ground, and we've had a lot of common ground with some of the listeners as well. Thank you to everyone who's left us a review and helped us fly up those podcast charts. It is a independent, separate thing that we're doing. It's not under What Culture, it's not under Grapples. So any help and reviews that people can give to help us boost up those algorithms and give that Undertaker bloke a bit of a run for his money. Last I checked, we were number 6 on the Great Britain iTunes chart. So we need to get to the top. Chris Van Vliet, I think, is still number 1. Can't have that. Got it. Need to sort it out.
No, give him a like, give him a comment, and get it up them charts. I listened to that first show, and where you're just sort of doing the little introduction and the whole setup and things, and like you say there, just the nostalgia element of it. There's just going to be so many little things, isn't there, where you're just going to be like, oh fucking hell, like I forgot about that guy, or like shit, I forgot that happened, or even if it doesn't happen on that show, it's just going to trigger like another memory and things. It's just going to become like a talking point and thing. So definitely looking forward to going through the series. I think with them being 2-hour shows as well, it's just a nice fucking little nostalgia trip, isn't it? Just 2 hours to kill for only In Your House, and then like before you listen to the show. But you've blown it all in that retro schedule, though, mate. We've had to a few in your house matches there. We've had to reschedule. We don't want to go head to head with the big dogs.
We'll have to have a tag team match, Retro versus In Your House. That's what I'm trying to set up. We have got it. We're going to be doing guests, and obviously we'll have you on, Gareth. Matty's going to be on episode 3. I've joked before, it'll be his podcast by episode 5, but we'll do like a big tag match, Sean versus Brett style. Me and Hamflett can be the 2 dudes with attitude, Sean and Diesel. You can just be Brett and Owen. I think that works. We'll find out a way. But yeah, we're looking forward to having everybody on that as well. And yeah, like I say, for me, it's a dream. Unfortunately, it's coming at a time when the WWE network is shutting down, and everything's hopefully going over to Netflix in January. So we might not have a podcast by the start of January. So your support will be needed as we hunt down torrents of the early On Your Houses. But yeah, it's
all right.
A labour of love. Yeah, there you go. He'll be
JP
he'll be our
and
pusher.
Torrance. He hasn't got much on his plate, has he?
He'll figure us out. But yeah, the support's been great, great to see, and like I say, big soft spot for me for that period. Very much my very important years for me as a young wrestling fan. So if you feel the same way, like I say, Benno and Hamlet in your house, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere where podcasts are available. If you want more of me and Hamlet. But on that note, we should get into what we're here to talk about today, Gareth. And yeah, we're there with JP on maternity, and Matty elsewhere. It's left to me and you to go run through AEW Full Gear. And speaking of plugs, I'm not going to plug it, but I was on the Fightful prediction show with Steph on Friday. I think we recorded it for Full Gear. I felt so bad. The comments are just full of people going, "Who are these miserable fuckers? Why don't they love AEW as much as we do?" It's always a culture shock whenever I do those shows because that audience is very different than our audience. But as I had talked about in the pre-show, fuck me, I had probably two of the best weeks of my life in Toronto and New York / New Jersey. And honestly, the bit that I was least looking forward to was Full Gear. It was like, we always say it when we go on we go to like one of these local shows and we have a few beers in the pub and you're having that third beer and then somebody looks at the watch and goes, fuck, the show's starting in 5 minutes, we better go in. And it's like, why do we always ruin our night out with a wrestling show? That's how I feel about my holiday. Full Gear was just in the way. I don't know why I planned a trip around it, but I don't know whether that came out positive or negative, I will say. But for you, Gareth, was this a show you managed?
You're not negative, mate. You're a realist.
Well, I don't know. It depends on whether you believe the people in the comments or not. I was trying to be nice. I was putting a nice polished face on it. Though matches will be good. Just the TV's been fucking terrible. And to that point, like I was gonna say, like when did you manage to get Full Gear in, and like what was your excitement level for it? Because when I did that again, probably half the reason we didn't Steph didn't manage to get a record out last week was just neither of us could be asked at Dynamite last week. The week before, I joked on the pre-show, we literally watched that Dynamite in a sports bar, so we didn't really have the sound. And it's probably a good thing we didn't have a sound, because that was the Connecticut show, and we'd gone to a Connecticut Dynamite 2 years ago, and it was bad then. I can only imagine how cavernous it sounded. And then this week's Dynamite was just like, fucking F it. Every time I put it on, I was like, should we just go out and go to the pub instead? Should we go for something to eat? Like, should we just watch the YouTube highlights? Like, it was so hard to motivate myself to sit down and watch it. And I feel like those commenters aside, I think that's a universally held thing right now. Like, going into this pay-per-view is, we've said it a few times, but this was definitely the lowest people had. And I think expectations for the pay-per-view, without getting into it too much, were lower than usual as well. It just felt like a real cloud was among AEW leading into this thing.
Oh, like definitely, totally felt the same. And like, I think probably last time I was on Spotlight, other than the Hall of Fame show, was probably the last AEW pay-per-view, wasn't it? It was probably after Wrestle Dream, going through there, and we had got into just discussion about some of the sort of negative elements and the things just getting a bit like you've ran out of giving them time with and things. And in that time, just like me, the completist who stuck with Collision and all the way, stuck with Rampage all the way, I just thought I've just totally just scrapped them from my repertoire. I haven't watched an episode of Collision or Rampage since then, and like, in many ways, it's made AEW an easier watch when you've only got 2 hours of it to watch instead of 5 hours of it to watch. But then when it comes to watching, Dynamite, it's itself. I think a big part of it is just those crowds, and it's come back to sort of something that Matty will always say, is just when there's people in there and they're doing stuff, saying stuff, or they're in ring work that might be good, might be positive, with a hot crowd, might be more over kind of thing. But when you do it and it's just dead, empty crowds, fucking hell, you can feel it, can't you? And it really just sort of like, it just passes over to you sat at home, isn't it? It just really makes you just sort of like disconnect. People are saying lines on promo and just getting fucking crickets back at them, or Matty's whole thing of hearing someone ordering a beer in the background and things. That kind of doesn't feel like a joke. So, well, I know you always say he wasn't joking anyway, but like, it doesn't feel like a joke at all. And with me being away, I thought, well, I've got to watch Dynamite before I watch Full Gear. So I watched Dynamite this morning, and I was just like, fuck, like, God, come on, like, let me get to the pay-per-view. And I because I had the full day off today, like, ended up watching the pre-show as well. But gotta be honest, when I got to the end of the pre-show, I went, I'm putting SmackDown on. It didn't leave me with any desire to kind of, yes, I can't wait and jump on and watch Full Gear immediately. Like, just didn't create that enthusiasm or immediacy in me either. Really, so fucking bizarre feeling going into the pay-per-view.
Does feel like work right now. It really does. Like, I was, lucky enough to be going to the show. Like, it's not lost on me. Like, it's so cool. I'm getting to go to another AEW pay per view. Like, we said it on the Fightful thing we did. Like, we were 2 years ago at Full Gear in the same venue at the Prudential Center in Newark. And while we were in one of our hotels, like trying to find Dynamite on the TV to force ourselves to sit down and watch it, we found like it was like a Full Gear preview. I was like, oh, what's this? Let's see what it is. And like the Spectrum cable thing that was in our little hotel in East Village in New York, and it play on it. It was from 2 years ago, and it was the Full Gear preview from 2 years ago, and it was like watching a completely different universe. It was insane, and this was in like the shadow of all the Punk stuff, because it was back when the Young Bucks were coming back after mysteriously being gone. They never explain in that All Access show where they've been gone, or why they're so sad, or what the confusion is with them coming back. But it was during that period. But even then, like, there was there was one bit we noted on there where Sammy Guevara was on it, talking about how he had the biggest match of his life coming up at Full Gear, and everyone's going to be talking about it for 10 years later. We were just sat there flummoxed going, what was his match? Who did he wrestle? Apparently it was a multi-man with Claudio and Jericho in it, and Brian, like, four-way. Do you remember that? I don't. No. But again, different worlds, like watching it back going, wow, that's where we are. MJF won the title, at that point 2 years ago at that Full Gear. That was the visit when we gone to do the HQ, me and Steph, and we had actually gone to Stamford, Connecticut, rather than, is it Hartford, Connecticut, where the pay-per-view was, or whatever. Poor Swerve got wrong in his promo last week. Like, but even then, it was feeling like the bloom was coming off the rose, and it felt like that Dynamite was like, whoa. That was the first time, because Steph had said it was the first time she'd been to a Dynamite where it was like, Jesus, where are all the people? Like, it was that full like SmackDown from the 2010s, nobody in the stands type of feeling there. And like, I can only imagine how bad it's been these last couple of shows going forward. And to their benefit, like, in fairness, Full Gear itself was busy. It was near on like 10,000. It felt like a genuinely, I can't say people there were massively invested in the things they probably should have been invested in at times on this show, and that is a problem. It does feel like a show that's happening in front of you, and you go to, not to jump ahead too much, but you go to the end of this pay-per-view and it's like, hang on, like everyone's dispositions feel wrong. Everyone feels like they're in really weird spots in the crowd. Baby faces are heels are baby faces. There's people up and down this pay-per-view that I'm not actually sure whether the heels are baby faces, and I could definitely feel it, like in that building where there were certain people who were booking proof, who were rising above it still, your Swerves, your Ospreys, people like that, and then there's other people where it's like you couldn't pay these people to cheer along in these matches. You didn't pay these people to be invested in these matches. It just feels like, hopefully it's not, but it felt like this Full Gear pay-per-view was a bit of an anomaly of like they managed to shift that many tickets, because overwhelmingly it feels like there's just not an invested audience in AEW right now. Freudian slip. There definitely is one in WWE.
No,
British Sports, sorry, is what I meant to say. Yeah, Tom's right. That was the place we went to Dynamite.
Yeah, and it's don't want to be like broken record, but keep saying it. It is that investment. It is that making something like that compelling, that making you want to watch kind of thing, wanting to be in the building, feel like I've got to be there to see this, and they've lost that, haven't they, kind of thing, and that's going to take some hell of a lot of building back up. There's a whole lot of trust to be built there, and there's a whole lot of sort of continuous and consistent storytelling that they need to do to make you have that belief going into it. So yeah, it was, I don't know, I was almost treating this as, I don't know, I was probably with that lower investment going into watching this pay-per-view, whereas in the past it's kind of been one of those where, you've maybe been down on the weekly TV, and the pay-per-view is going to kind of jump in and sort of save the day. I mean, the pay-per-view is going to be booked well, and I'm sure they'll sort it out after the pay-per-view if that's well received. I was kind of approaching it this time as a bit kind of, entertain me kind of thing, a little bit sit back and just be like, what will be sort of thing. And if it's good, fine. If it's not, then
Yeah.
what should I expect at this time? Really, I'm sort of almost in a very different mindset going into watching this pay-per-view probably than I've gone into watching any other AEW pay-per-view in the past.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel as well about it, and just yeah, it was a struggle getting through the TV to get here, but you know, to the chat saying there, yeah, why would people come to the show just to sit in silence? Honestly, I think people wanted to be up for it. It's just one of them. It's a long show as well, which we'll get into with the card that caused some trouble as well, but. Yeah, definitely felt like the weirdest and the most, I'd say, universally, I think even the most positive former AEW defenders have been in the past weren't quite as positive on the build to this one. But we're talking so much about this quiet crowd in this one, Gareth, and I've got a huge amount of notes to say about being there live at the pre-show. To be honest, I spent most of Anna Jay and Deonna Purrazzo and the Buddy Matthews four-way trying to get myself a drink and finding out that like I said before, the Budweiser cost $18, and finding myself at a Diet Pepsi in the very long queue. Chicken and chips was good. Not sure it was like £20 good, but it was pretty good. So I missed a fair amount of the pre-show, but what I made sure I didn't miss, and you couldn't miss it, and I've been excited to get your take on this, was the main event of the pre-show, which was Big Boom AJ versus QT Marshall. And like, honestly, I said it at the time when I was in the building. I turned to Stefan, I was like, this is the loudest this crowd's going to be all night. And I don't know whether that's a good thing, but it very much was. Like, we were coming back to our seats, and you could hear, like, you know, from the entrances, like, just how loud it was in there for these. It felt like, oh, hang on, this is a boisterous, proper AEW crowd we've got in here, like, going crazy for the Costco guys. And I said, like, yeah, I mean, it might be a state of what AEW is right now, that, you know, this crowd are here for this, but might not necessarily be here for what comes later on. Maybe they had something to do with shifting some of those last minute tickets, but I'm hoping you liked it, I keep going to call you JP here, Gareth. Hoping you liked it, because honestly, one of my highlights of the show was this pre-show match with Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall. And I feel like you, Gareth, like you always say with your kids, where they'll name like some Twitch streamer where it's like, you know, AZ Sanat is now is like the new hotness, and you just say, okay, fine, that's who all the kids are watching on YouTube. Oh, there's a new Paul brother. Okay, fine, that's who all the kids are into. I wasn't necessarily massively aware of the Costco guys. I think obviously we all have been made aware of them from the AEW and from that Fallon clip that went viral a couple of weeks ago, but he couldn't be arsed with them either. But there's clearly an audience there, like whether it's a real audience, whether it's, you know, actually results in gigantic business swing in any kind of way is probably the bigger question. But you look at the video numbers of any video that these 2/3 were in on AEW's Twitter, like 10 to 15 million per view in each of these videos, and you look at how invested and how over they were in front of this crowd. And honestly, I as much as I'm going to rail against the comedy and the over reliance on sports entertainment type stuff in AEW, I do think there's exceptions to every rule. And when it works and it gets a reaction like this I can't really complain about it. But yeah, I've been dying to know, what did you make of this, Gareth?
Well, I mean, I'd never heard of them in my life until this point. You know, I'm not like a YouTube guy. Kind of, my kids have never mentioned them either, so it obviously hasn't kind of, you know, transcended to what they're watching and things. So it was just like, who the hell are these? So just totally coming into it cold. But like, how could you not go along with this and just fucking like love it? Because it's pure pro wrestling. like when you were like then seeing the clips of them and they're like the catchphrases and the way they present stuff and things, it's just all wrestling. And then when it's like, oh yeah, he used to be an indie wrestler, you're like, oh well, yeah, you can see that in fucking everything that he does, you know, the way that just crosses it over. But the big thing is like, you know, I think it was on the pre-show, like, you know, Renee was talking about video of the interviews getting like 11 million viewers and things. So I was thinking, well, fucking hell, they're moving the needle more than Sasha Banks, or they're moving the needle more than Bobby Lashley. You know, like, you know, there's these actual people who are out there that are interested in, and we've given WWE like a lot of credit for the success in tapping into cultural things that are culturally hot, sort of thing, and being able to kind of make that crossover into different areas. And, you know, they've actually done it here. And then the way this was delivered, just I thought everything about this was just pure perfection. It was just a great bit of pure pro wrestling business, right down to the selection of QT Marshall as the opponent and everything. It was perfect. It was fantastic. I loved every second of this.
Don't you think we're like more wired to kind of be, because I listened to a few podcasts on the flight home of like reviews of this, and it feels like the Americans and maybe the Canadians, but mostly the Americans are the ones who are listening to, like, you know, just this is not my AEW. And I'm actually, to be honest, I'm sympathetic to that, because, you know, it's often a talking point on here. You don't want AEW to be like WWE, and this was a very WWE move. But I think there are exceptions to everything, and if it works, it works. And I think maybe just as like British fans, I know we're used to the camps and we're used to like that holiday camp style work. This was the most holiday camp match you could get. This was like those fucking veterans who are like, these knobheads doing the Hurricane Ranas and stuff. This is how you really work a crowd, by doing as little as possible. You know, the art of the kind of the art of the work, and fair play if that's not for you. But like it was, I said that on the Discord, for me, it was the most pro wrestling thing on the show. Like the way that they did so much with so little. And like you said, yeah, that was a big takeaway for me. That AJ's clearly like a veteran indie wrestler who worked a particular, you know, family friendly style, that went out there and just made everything that he did counted. And QT Marshall, absolutely, like, you want a heel you can plug into this role, who's gonna be a heel, who's gonna bump and stooge and look like a knobhead and bump for a child and do everything he did. Like, it worked. And yeah, you know, it might be lowbrow, and yeah, it might not quite be what we all wanted out of AEW, but if you think of like how many pre-shows we've had that have just been like all in, like it was just a fucking cavalcade of fucking match with 27 allegedly good wrestlers in them doing nothing. This was such a better use of that time, because it literally got the crowd up. It massively did. It made everybody excited for the show to start, and it was the perfect pre-show main event for me.
And that's it. Like coming straight back to that is like, it actually, you know, you say, oh, this is probably going to be the loudest that the crowd is all night. You know, if you say you said that to Steph, I think it kind of felt like that to me when I was watching it. You know, the pop that like Big Justice got when he fucking speared QT was enormous. I think that was the biggest pop of the night. Like, was for a kid
among the people cheering,
QT Marshall. Like, yeah, like just came across fantastic. Just to build like on the QT stuff and like saying he was a perfect guy for it. Just the elaborate over application of holds kind of thing, making it like dead camp showy, visible kind of in what he was doing. Yeah, you know, the joy of the crowd and everything like that. Like, I loved QT's performance in this, because he was just like setting himself up to just eat a load of shit kind of thing, and absolutely great with the way he delivers. And then when you come back to the whole not my AEW like side of thing as well. Like, I know nobody wants it to be like all this, but I think people forget how AEW was built on the back of like being the elite and a lot of meme shit and a lot of fucking, you know, you go back to the first All In show and like how much kind of campy, memey stuff was involved in that. That was like a big part of the audience crossover. It wasn't like they were like going out there on YouTube, you know, boots and trunks on their channel kind of thing. It's people dicking about and doing like stupid stuff and things. So it's AEW was actually built on tapping into sort of like the zeitgeist a little bit, and you know, that element of crossover, and you know, maybe that's something that they have been lacking as I've struggled to find like an identity in the last few years, is trying to be too one-laned or trying to be too serious, or then trying to be a bit more, you know, sports and entertainment down that route as well. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, if anyone's sitting watching this and like complaining about a 15-20 minute match and that turns up on a pre-show that gets a fucking huge crowd reaction, that gets loads of eyeballs on the product, then you're in the wrong game, because this was as wrestling as it gets for me.
Yeah, and you know, there's a question about whether will those eyeballs stick around. I'd be interested in, and I'm not the first to pitch this, but we were saying this, like if you put this in like a Rampage or a Collision or something, maybe not Dynamite, but like you do a rematch somewhere, just see, would it make a difference numbers wise? I think it actually might. Again, will those people come away wrestling fans? We'll see, you know, coming out of it. But yeah, it's like anything. It's like any music, any film. Like, I'm not a horror fan, but a really well done horror film, I can be into it. Pop music, most pop music's crap, but you'll get that one pop song that you can tell has been artistically done and put together really well. Anything can be done well, and I think that's it. My only pushback will be, I wish this was the exception and not the rule. I wish this was, you know, the one match like this and the one presentation like this, and there wasn't so much more of it up and down the crowd in it card in AEW. I think that's a problem. But taken in isolation, yeah, it was just a great fun time, and I think they all delivered. And yeah, you said there about the pop for Big. I keep getting them mixed up. Big Justice and Big Boom AJ, but Big Justice, which is the kid doing the spear. Like, that was only a clip by, and I hope this was on the pay-per-view broadcast when the Rizzler went up to the second rope. Like, honestly, like, he's like, and again, we're talking about the fucking Rizzler, which is just some kid that people just enjoy pulling faces. But like, he was so over, made the most of his TV time. Every time the camera was on him, like, he was just, you know, hitting the high spots, getting all over, watching live. I don't know how much of this came across, but at the end, when they were all celebrating the top rope, you had to be told like 4 or 5 different times, get on the second rope, get on the second rope. And he didn't want to. He wanted to just stand in the ring while the other two got up. And then eventually, I think it was Big Show, literally grabbed him and was like, go on the second rope. And he went up. The fucking reaction, it was like Hogan Andre stuff. And I know it's half ironic as well, but like, it was the perfect cherry on top to this whole presentation. And it did put everybody in the arena in a good mood. So did everything it needed to do.
That's it. Like, if it's got people making noise, if it's got people laughing, if it's got people up and things like that, that can only be a good thing as well, just to sort of like then feed into the atmosphere for the matches to come. But the old Rizzler needs to get a few more eye spots. I was after the 13th or 14th time that I'd seen him stroke his chin, I was a bit like, come on,
that
lad,
is kind of his only move.
You need something else in your arsenal there. You can't. There's no longevity in your career getting by with that one spot there. You need something else.
Oh, Jimmy Fallon was so confused by him. Watch that clip; it's hilarious. As it's like watching The Rock. The mask slips as he's just getting more and more frustrated by these kids. But anyway, was what it was. And yeah, the only other note from the pre-show I had was the November Rain video package, which I actually saw for the first time. I hadn't seen it when it was first aired. Bit of Guns N' Roses fan, Gareth. Bit of nostalgia there to the old ECW stuff. It made the product feel hotter than it actually is. I will say that video. It felt a little bit like you'd want it on a more emotional night, I think. You know, like where you've got like a big, like, not a Danielson retirement, but something like that happening. This is just a bit of a run-of-the-mill pay-per-view that happens to be in November to use the song. But I did enjoy the package once I finally saw it.
Yeah, it was one of them. It was a good setup, kind of, just as a little run through. It sort of showed that, there is actually stories here. I've just been bored into oblivion by some of them, kind of. So it does kind of like it did kind of do a good job of kidding you that some of these builds and things were better than they actually were if you've been watching the weekly TV. So it worked on that basis, but should have used Estranged. That would have been more fitting.
I would have fit. We'll get into the main show from there. I think we're going to spend less time, like a fifth of the time on this opener than we did on the pre-show main event. 4-way tag match kicked us off as Private Party retained against the Outrunners, Kings of the Black Road, and the Acclaimed, amongst acclaimed miscommunication and teasing of a turn. At first, I just thought people were booing Matt Caster because he's a cunt. I think that's actually part of this. People are just done with them. But I'm glad at least the AEW booking has caught on to, I think, what most of us have known is a bit like the Hook thing. People have known for 2 years he's gone off the boil. People have known for 2 years the Acclaimed of, they hit their peak. They could have sold a load of foam fingers if AEW's merch was any better. Although they did have a couple of decent stands at a Full Gear on Saturday night. I will give them that. But yeah, the balloon was very much off the rose with them. Whether there's much there in a singles feud, I don't know, but that's probably the notable thing here from this opener. It was a match for match's sake, and maybe you keep it on the card because there were so many singles matches, but it was the most skippable of all the matches on this card, I'd say, for me, and the one that you could most give the honours to being called if you didn't need to take anything.
Yeah, it was, in terms of like, if you're throwing star ratings at it and things, it was definitely the lowest rank to me. It just felt like it was a match that just took place at like half pace generally. And I think I'm probably going to ask you this a million times of like the feeling of like in the building, but it felt like Kings of the Black Throne were over in the building. It felt like they were getting like decent, and even Buddy Matthews in the opener. It felt like he was getting good reactions there. I've got to be honest. In a world where we've like criticised the tag division and things, the idea of shove Malachi Black into this tag team and with Brody King, and then like have a proper pure tag run with them, and like maybe strap them up down the line. felt like, yeah, why not? It might be the best use that might help elevate the division. And it sort of felt like in this match they were just protected as fuck, weren't they? Like, it felt like the other three teams had to team up on them to get the better of them in this match. They I think they generally from a work point of view got presented as the best overall. But in a world there where you've got the Acclaimed dissension going on, the Outrunners increasingly just looking like the one-trick pony that they are, and not having any other levels of depth to their act behind that sort of immediate joke getting over. And then Private Party doesn't feel like are doing anything particularly to sort of like elevate themselves in the eyes of the audience as being like, oh, we're now a tag team who's on a higher level to everybody else who's out there. Really, this match just sort of felt like a bit of an illustration of all of those points, more so than been anything positive. It was probably more negatives taken away at the end of it, really. But yeah, I was just left feeling like just fucking strap Kings of the Black Throne up and give them a long reign against some decent people who they can go out there and work singles matches with.
I mean, you say Buddy Matthews got over on the pre-show, he did. You say they looked as a team here, they did. But wouldn't it be the most AEW thing ever for like these to just never team again? The next tag match we get with them is Collision in 3 months, or like Buddy Matthews. I just assumed he was going to be in the Continental Classic. He's not. Like, so why protect him so much in the pre-show? He might never get another singles match on Dynamite. Like that's the problem, isn't it? Like, can you actually invest in that? Because I had that same thought. We made fun of Tommy Bella and loads, like with the daft falling on his sword thing with Adam Cole. But in the weeks since, yeah, as a tag act, it's like, oh, there could be something there. This is a tag division that's lacking in numbers, Outside of FTR, there aren't any other teams really outside of these four that are of note in the company right now. There could be something there, but it's that trust that it will actually lead to something, isn't it? But it's one of them we say constantly push new people, and you don't want to be like, but not those people. But I do feel that way about Private Party. I do think their ceiling's really low outside of the odd Young Bucks match that they can have. Kings of the Black Throne, I think, would, at least in this lower stakes tag division, have more upside. Like, I'd like to see them go with them. I've just no trust in the company that they will.
100% agree. Like, totally. Malachi Black could just be in a singles feud on, as of Wednesday or something. And
well, he's actually leaving, and we never see him again.
Yeah. But, and it feels like they've put a bit of emphasis on Brody King maybe in the last sort of 6 weeks, 2 months as well. He has almost felt like the 1A of the team a little bit, or of the group of late. But then again, he could be 1C of the team next week. Who knows? Depending on how the booking wins go. But sure. Yeah, skip it if you've not watched this show.
2-star
get through it in a quick time. You can skip this, and you don't need to worry about a thing.
Biggest shock for me was that opened in this next match. MJF and Roddy Strong didn't, because you would think MJF would get that spot. Full Gear has been pretty much his pay-per-view for good and bad. He won the title there, and then he did that shit show bookend in the show last year with Jay White and all of that stuff. Fast forward here to a completely throwaway match with Roddy Strong. This is the first, like, very clear, like, they don't know what they're doing, they don't have a plan match, or if they do have a plan, it's a bad plan match of the night. Is like, I just couldn't believe that they were asking you on a pay-per-view to buy MJF versus Roddy Strong. Like, I wondered whether it was because they were worried the crowd were going to go so strong with MJF and go, if they did like MJF versus Adam Cole, that they'd flip it again, because it's already confusing who's the babyface and the heel. And if that crowd will go for MJF and Adam Cole gets booed, that's a negative you want to avoid. But they brought Adam Cole out at the end of the match anyway, so I don't even know if that was necessarily the thinking, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit. But, like, this match just did not belong on a pay-per-view. Roddy Strong is fantastic. A performer as he's been his entire, and reliable a performer as he's been his entire career. He's an engine. He's a workhorse. He's a great guy to have on your mid card. Is he a babyface or is he a heel, Gareth? I don't know. And I don't think the crowd knows. And I don't think, again, speaking to that investment, anyone outside of laughing at his catchphrase or two, and this is where you get into the negative end of the meme wrestling up and down these cards, like, why would you be cheering Roddy Strong against MJF? So it just led to a weird situation where I guess Roddy Strong was the babyface, but MJF was getting cheered like he used to as the ironic heel babyface, which is going to happen in the Northeast. But I don't know. If you knew that was going to happen, I'd almost possibly leave MJF off, or just get the Adam Cole match over with, because it was just elongating what we all know is coming, like a full year of MJF and Adam Cole. Of course, they're going to want to end it at World's End and do the full loop, because of course Max is going to want that. But this was a complete nothing match and just spoke to just the weirdness of AEW creative. The post match was confusing. Kyle O'Reilly getting mad at everybody because they didn't protect Roddy Strong, when it took Adam Cole about 6 years to come out and help Roddy Strong, despite the fact it was very clear what MJF was going to do. And who cares? Undisputed Kingdom drama. Like, what year is this? Is this NXT from the mid-2010s? Like, nobody cares, do they? It's just this idea. Adam Cole did an interview, I think, today or yesterday, saying, oh, he thinks it was the right decision to keep this feud going. No, it fucking wasn't. Just get it over with, and we got another month to go.
Yeah, and it's just that it comes back to that thing of, you know, I was just watching it thinking, like, why bother going down this route? Why even put MJF on the card? Like,
Yeah.
Was anyone clamoring to see this match? No. Was this match entirely necessary to set up the stuff with Adam Cole, like, any more so than everything that's gone back before? No. Did MJF been on the card sell more pay-per-views for this? Probably not, kind of thing. He's not been on, you know, apart from his little terrible clips that have been edited into stuff over the last. It's worse. It's looked bad. It's made things terrible. The best course of action is if he's filming something, fucking get him off your TV. Don't have him on your pay-per-views. Like, you know, there's 7,000 other people on your roster that you can be using, or just don't book the match at all. Like, it was a weird one to be there, and that whole idea of like the heel babyface thing, like, anyone who's sort of caught in that Adam Cole MJF universe just feels like in this sort of weird purgatory that they're, you know, like, oh shit, was he a heel last week? Or, like, you know, even Kyle O'Reilly coming, you're like, oh no, he's back with them. Oh no, he's not. Hang about, what's going on here? Can't, you know, people who are then by osmosis sort of coming into the side. It's been so clouded. And then I think just for when MJF's music hit at the start and they got a fucking massive cheer, like, I just immediately just went, how much have they just fucked MJF by that face thing that you can never go back. You can't put it back in the, you know, toothpaste back in the tube sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's given it his best stuff to, you know, trying to do his mic work of trying to get the crowd to, you know, hate him, throwing out his insults and things like that. Just don't work anymore. Like, it can't be done. Like, so, you know, then you need to just get through. You almost need to just get through this and think, like, what can we possibly do, and who can we possibly have him go up against that will make him as clearly a defined heel as possible, that he's against a babyface that people are just going to want to wholeheartedly be behind, you know, one way or another. Because other than that, he's always just going to now have this middle ground, isn't he? And it's always going to do damage to not just the matches, just the product in general, the storylines that you try and tell with him.
He was one of those, like, on the indies, he's one of those guys you watch by. Like, everyone else goes out there and tries to have a quote-unquote good match, or, you know, might not stick to their face heel. He was always in character. He was always a heel. Everything was very meticulous. Everything about him was designed to get booed and to be this great heel. And yet, you're absolutely right. Like, he was a babyface who did all the same things he did as a heel. And people were chanting in the arena, he's our scumbag again. And I was like, that's what you did. You made that his babyface character, so that now that he's a heel again, what is there to boo about him? He's just doing all the same stuff he did as a babyface. Like, he's done untold damage to his character. This feud has done untold damage to both him and Adam Cole, and it has, I agree with you, done damage to the company as well. Like, just unnecessary. Probably belongs second match on the card if it was going to be anywhere, because that's where MJF belongs right now in AEW. And but the other big note of it, watching it, from the stands, I could see the fucking state of what was going on with his tan. What did MJF look like? What was going on? Like, he looked horrendous. Like, he looked awful. Like, everything's so try-hard. Even the heat he tried to get before the match was just like, oh, right, yeah, okay. He's going like, even bringing up the Roddy Strong, like, the murder stuff with his mum and dad feels very fucking serious for a feud and a program that's not that serious. You've got to be disciplined when you put these, you know, when you're writing anything. Like, if you're writing The Sopranos, like, you know, you want your murder to be important and massive and a big part of the show, so you don't have 4 other murders earlier on in the show. And if you want those types of lines to land, you save them for your serious big time programs. You don't just throw them out there willy-nilly in a nothing match with Roddy Strong. Like, it's the lack of discipline that gets me with MJF and everything that happens with him on TV.
and it's just it's lowest hanging fruit stuff to try and get those boos back. So he's having to try and reach for the most extreme, obvious stuff every time to try and try and put himself back in that place. But people aren't buying it. So I think try hard is the word, Benno. That, like you said there, he is almost trying too hard to go to these lengths to try and get that heel heat back again. But it's difficult, and as well as impacting like the match and his storylines, it doesn't feel like a main event to me anymore. Like I was watching this and I was thinking like, yeah, this feels about right. Like this is where he sits. This is how important he feels. Does he feel like a guy who's should be challenging at the top of the card? Like absolutely not. Kind of. We've been there and like it stunk and like why go back there really? It's needs totally rewired the MJF character.
Any other thoughts on the match? I would have gone like 3.25 in the build, and I didn't have any.
Same on my telly as well, mate.
Going to give you Roddy Strong, isn't he? He's they're going to do their best as far as the in-ring goes, but how could you care? So yeah, we went from there. Things did pep up a little bit as we head up next for the TBS title, and I think I agree, and I've repeatedly said Mercedes Moné, I don't know what they're doing with her in AEW. It's partially her, it's partially a personal writer, it's partially how she deliver those promos, it's partially the face and heel thing. There's a number of reasons why, but it's clearly not working. She's clearly not a draw. She's clearly not a difference maker. I did actually see in real life some Sasha stands, Gareth, so I can say they do exist. Just doesn't seem like there's that many of them. Yeah, there's definitely more Big Boom AJ fans, but there were some in the building. I can say, but yeah, again, another one where the bloom is very much off the rose as far as the character goes, and stock has definitely fallen since she came to AEW. So I would say by that merit, and Chris Statlander as well, who's somebody who was doing really well as a heel, that they randomly turned babyface for this random program that's been full of paper mache walls and car angles and all kinds of shite WWE tropes. Don't think it's been worth it dropping something that was working to just plop it into here. Both of these needed a good match, and I would say they delivered a very good match in here. I think this was Mercedes' best AEW match so far, and it's no coincidence, I would say, that she was in there with Chris Statlander to give her that. Do I wish the build was better? Absolutely. Do I wish the dispositions were better? Absolutely. And it was all a bit more end, but they actually surprised me in this one. And maybe it was the fact that, again, being there live in the building, I always forget when you're in New York how much they all fucking hate Boston. And we had that awkward, I was at Forbidden Door this year as well, where Mercedes was supposed to be a babyface and she was getting booed because of the Boston thing. Like here, it was very much the reason she was getting booed so loudly, but it didn't matter. It worked. And despite them maybe not earning Chris Statlander as a top line women's babyface, the crowd were into her as one, and they were buying those near falls, and they were desperate for her to win here. And part of that probably was the cheap hits of Mercedes being from Boston, but when things work, they work. And this one, for me, really felt like it clicked, Gareth, and ended up being one of the, I'd say, the tippy-top highlights of the night in ring. I'm hoping you agree. Or maybe I just had rose-tinted spectacles on because of how much we were all cheering for Chris Statlander in the close of this. Maybe finish aside would be the caveat to that, but I thought the work here was very good.
Like definitely, I think if there's one thing we learned in the Hall of Fame show is how aligned we are in a lot of areas, Benno, and as well as same rating
together, mate.
Same rating in that last one. This was my overriding feeling with this one was that this was her best opponent that she's had since she's been in AEW. I think it was her best performance, but I think Statlander as her opponent brought that out of her as well. I think the dynamic, just from a physicality, size point of view, I thought Statlander was a good base for her for a lot of offense as well. I think that they then had to sort of like work a bit more of a story into the match, with the back weakening after the Rana off the apron that was brought in there. Give them someone to play with a little bit more, and then I think that the more then big offense that Mercedes hit, and she was increasingly getting frustrated at her inability to get the three as well. That kind of like added a nice, little layer, little dynamic into the match from like a character point of view with her as well. So I thought that really worked well. And I mean, like you say, the finish, and you sort of, okay, there's the very, very finish. But I thought the run to the finish, worked good. I thought Stack going for that 450 and Mercedes moving, and then her then attacking the knee, and then Mercedes hitting the frog splash on the knee and things. That was the way that was building. So Statlander kicked out at 2 off that, where it sort of looked done. Then she did that, she did 3 backstabbers, went into the moneymaker finish as well, and Stack kicked out at 2 again, sort of thing. So I feel like the way that they pieced that together in the run up to the actual finish, I felt like the crowd were biting on them finishes, and then Statlander was getting like the big pop when she was kicking out there as well. So I thought that worked particularly well. Just came over it, just feeling sort of overridingly positive about this. And I think the women's division has been one of the highlights probably over the course of the last 12 months in terms of some of the storylines where there was multiple storylines going on, and it feels like an area where they've almost scaled that back, and this one hasn't sort of hit the mark as well. And Mariah May's run was been a bit of a bust on Dynamite to that point, and you were thinking, oh, come on, can we get back to a bit more weight behind the women's division and having something a bit more substantial there. Possibly this is just a case of them gelling on the night and it coming out and been the match, they get in the ring and have a match, and it saves them, once again on a pay-per-view for AEW. But hopefully it's given them something there that they think, well, let's keep these two together. Let's see how we can extend this. Let's see what story. Obviously they've got the Camille factor like built into the background there. Potentially there's a bit more that can be done from that end. That means that Statlander works with her again, because I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and it's AEW for me. Like, it feels like. Do you remember, like, I mention it a lot, early 90s, like, for me, maybe being a bit younger than you, I guess you were living it more real time. I was watching all those WCW tapes and loving them, because I was watching them out of context. And when I got older and I learned that the agreed upon IWC opinion was that WCW creative was bad in the early 90s, it kind of surprised me a bit, because I hadn't lived the week to week. I'd just watched the pay-per-views or the VHSs that came out and thought all of this was great. And I think if somebody in the future does that with AEW and just watches these pay-per-views and watches a match like this, it'll kind of be like, or if you're not watching the TV week to week, it'll be like, well, what are you complaining about? If it actually, more than WCW in the early 90s, it feels like Russo. Like Russo, when he ran TNA, I'll always say to Matty, the bit I'll give him credit is like, his week to week was terrible and the stories were terrible, but he was good at knowing where to slot people. He was good at recognizing this is an undercarder with a bit of personality. I'm going to give them a little bit more. This is, AJ Styles he recognized early. The Kurt Angle should be at this point in the TNA cards. We'd have everyone slotted in the right places. It was just the week to week creative was genuinely awful. These are whatever you want to say about Mercedes, like I said at the top, a stock is fallen, like there's no disputing that at this point, but she's under contract, and I think it's fantasy booking to be like, oh, they should just get rid of her. In real life, they're not gonna, are they? She's gonna be in AEW until the end of that contract, and like what you've got to do now, like you've got to, is make the most of that, even if she is a bit of a busted flush at this point. So she should be at this point in the card if you're gonna try and get some of that money back. Chris Statlander should be at this point where she's like the challenger. It's just everything that went into it was wrong. The dispositions were wrong. But I guess to piggyback off what you're saying, now that we are at that point and we actually are coming off this match, fuck it. Just do 3 rematches. Like, we'll just forget the past and we'll forget the fucking week-to-week creative and we'll just build it around matches, because this was the most Sasha Banks Mercedes has looked, and it's no mistake that it was in there with Chris Statlander. If she's out there next month against some other random person in the women's division, I don't think that's the play. I think Chris Statlander is the one who should be here, even with those misgivings about how Chris got there too. I think I'd go with that, and based on the crowd reactions here, I'd be tempted to go with Chris. Give her the belt, like do a bit of flopping, maybe change some of your plans once in a while, and act on the fly. Maybe that could help.
And this was a prime example of what we were talking about before, of that level of trust of what they will then do, and in the weeks following on from things. Because when Statlander's music hit and she came out to crickets, as she's been doing, coming out to crickets since they did this obscure babyface return, I was at the start, as she was walking to the ring, I was left in my head just thinking, they fucked her in the same way they fucked MJF here. Like, now people are, she was over big time as a babyface. they've done that heel turn and then just flopped it back for no apparent reason, and they've fucked the character overall. But by the end of this match, I felt like, oh, this match has just a match in isolation has gone a long way to rebuilding Statlander there, because it made people remember how good she is. It made people get behind her and wanted to see her beat Mercedes. So this is one of those where they've been thrown a bone there, not just for Statlander's revival, but also for Mercedes Moné and what they can get out of her. This is where, how many times over the years have we said about AEW, you've got to now capitalize on this. You've got something there, that Statlander could just easily be not on TV for the next 3 weeks. She could very easily just have a match against Serena Deeb on Rampage in a fortnight or something like that, and that'll be what she does for the next 3 weeks, because, like you say, the plan's there on a spreadsheet of what's supposed to be happening on Dynamite this.
They missed the boat. So
got to pivot. You've got to pivot. It was like the Acclaimed, wasn't it? When with the belts, when they were clamoring and they held kind of, and then sort of like it was there, but it was, you had a lower version of it as opposed to when it could have been in its peak as well.
Gotta listen to that crowd. Again, I know it was the Boston thing, but when Mercedes hit that run of moves into a finisher where it felt like, okay, that's the end of the match, and they gave Chris that one last kick out, that was fucking, again, some outside of Big Boom AJ, some of the loudest the crowd were all night. Unfortunately, it led into what I still don't really understand what the finish was intended to be on the ropes. Too much of that happens in Mercedes matches at this point. It felt like they hit 70% of whatever they were creatively trying to do on the finish to the match. But all the way up to it was a 4-star match for me. Maybe I knock off 2.25 for that finish, I'm not sure, but really strong match, and as good a women's match as AEW have had in a while, maybe outside of Tony Mariah all in.
Yeah, I went 3.75 on it, and again, that's high. That's a good score kind of thing. There's for some of the Mercedes stuff, it's been right down at the 3-star end. So if you're in there that you're touching 4-star territory, it's just sort of shows how good it was overall, really, and nicely pieced together. And yeah, fair play, great job. But what happens next? That's the question.
Speaking of dispositions being wrong in AEW, next up was another. As Steph had gone to the toilet and came sprinting back down to a seat for this one, as Jay White versus Hangman Page was up next. And yeah, sorry if I'm a broken record, but there are a couple of examples up and down this card that just say to me, people are just slotted in all the wrong places. And Jay White, babyface championship match hopeful, is among the top ones in that, as I would have predicted. Hangman Page felt like the babyface in the building in here against Jay White. He's felt like the babyface in the booking. Jay White has got an entourage. Jay White is the one bragging about having all these wins over Hangman Page. And Hangman Page is Hangman Page, and I guess it gives you more colour, for Hangman Page's kind of almost tweener character if you've only got one of those, and he's got all that depth and he's got all that investment, that you can be a little bit more shades of grey with him. But the problem is you put him in there with a Jay White who's just undercooked as a babyface and swimming upstream, doing his best. I don't think his promos have necessarily been bad. His matches, his performances as a babyface have been good, but he's been so defined down in the booking and is just so naturally a heel that it's just never going to work. They're trying to give Jay White right now, probably outside of that MJF match, which turned into what it turned into, one of the biggest pushes of his AEW career, but it's as a babyface and after everything that went, and you could feel it in the building. It was uphill. It was a climb for Jay to get much of a response to everything, and they did get there in various points. Maybe not necessarily at the end of the night, where they have definitely I've heard louder responses than when Jay White came in at the end, but they tried is probably what I'd say. I'd say this might be one, if I was sat in a sports bar on mute watching it, I'd say the work was very good, but sitting there in an arena and the reactions just not really being what they went for, it just wasn't as good as the sum of its parts, this match for me. But what say you, Gareth?
Yeah, and again, you said it right at the start, is, we don't want to be broken record, but this is, it feels like months now we've been talking about this, about the wrong dynamic here, and how good a natural heel Jay White is, and how people want to cheer Hangman, people want to people like want to get behind Hangman. Like naturally, he's not someone who people wouldn't want to boo. When you even had like instances through this match where the crowd are getting into him, and then he's having to kind of like flip the crowd off and things to try and get that negative reaction from them the other way, which is again, you don't want him being put in that position where he's needing to do that. You want him to be, taking those crowd reactions on board and going with them, because again, he's what is has been one of the biggest stars in the company, and somebody who there is that like natural connection with. And then a lot of the stuff that he's supposed to have been heelish for in the past has actually been quite babyface, really. So it kind of gives him a like good argument for people to want to get behind him too. In terms of the match as a whole, again, I did enjoy the work for what it was in this in this match. I thought they told a good story, with Hangman in control early with the ankle, and I quite liked the way that was. That was set up with Jay White landing badly on it on the outside, and then Hangman going after it. You then kind of had that like parallel of it going back the other way with Hangman injuring his knee. So you had the two weaknesses for them to both work off throughout the match, and I thought that was something that worked really well. And I thought they both sold, they both remembered like the injury throughout. Like, one of my favourite bits in this match was there was like a waistlock bridge in German by Jay White for a near fall, and like he's up on his toes, but his damaged ankle was just wobbling throughout, and then so it meant that he couldn't like hold him for as much as Hangman was going to come kick out. It was as much about the fact that Jay White couldn't just like hold his foot still because there was too much pressure on his injured ankle. Again, small detail, but just good stuff to be built in from that point. There was like a striking exchange with them both as well, where it was like both limping kind of as they were going through that striking exchange, because they both had the injury again. Just the sort of like the small details to the work that I enjoyed there when it came to that, and right up to while the finish obviously been sort of hit out of nowhere, and I think the timing of it felt a bit weird for the crowd in terms of the reaction that it got from the crowd. I thought
the finish was coming.
It felt badly placed. I think because just before that there'd been Hangman hitting he hit two dead eyes, and Jay kicked out of like one of them at 2.99, and the crowd really bit on that, and then
it was that New Japan kick out, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then suddenly it was suddenly, oh no, like Blade Runner 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It felt like it just suddenly was like they were told like, no, go home, kind of like. And
the sequence to the Blade Runner was really well done, wasn't it? Like the back and forth. Jay's great at those little back and forths, but I agree, it felt a bit anticlimactic. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, so I got that. I felt like that. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you, was how that felt in the building, really, because watching it from at home, it felt like the crowd were a bit like, oh, that's it. Like, really, that was the
crowd where, however, the person sat next to me was going crazy because Jay White just behind my page. So like it worked for Steph, but I was kind of sat there going, oh, right, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. And obviously the booking later on would, I suppose, make some sense of that, but absolutely that is what it felt like. And I would say as well, I enjoyed like the limb work in here, but it was a lot, and I think that hurt the crowd as well, that it was worked at a slower pace because they were both selling, and they're both great at selling. Like, this was, Steph didn't like this. I called Jay White work rate Randy Orton. She hated it, but I can't stand by it. Good looking lad who does all the technical stuff really well, and who in theory is a great wrestler or a great pros footwork we should all admire. Except I do think Jay, I call him work rate Randy because he's got a bit more to him, and obviously the matches deliver a bit more for me. But yeah, it did. It absolutely did feel that way. It did feel anticlimactic, and it did feel a step below the last Wrestle Dream, wasn't it? The last show, the last match there. It was good in theory, but yeah, maybe not so much in execution.
Yeah, and then obviously you then had the post match as well, didn't you? With Hangman hitting him from behind on the ramp, and then Hangman hitting Christopher Daniels, and like it just
once Christmas off, didn't he? Like my heart sank when that happened. Honestly, I was like, "Oh, am I fucking off for a bit again?" Like, I mean, that was my immediate. Just Christopher Daniels, like, it's like a meme, innit? He must just like just his whole life revolve around him running around in shirts, in As the George shirts and ties, in a panic. Like he's just constantly sprinting from one fight to another. What else does he do all day other than that? I'm glad to see him get decked, but as soon as it happened, my heart sank because it was like, well, that's Hangman off telly for a while. Maybe with the end of the pay per view, maybe they'll go another way, but I can't see any other thing you can do other than suspend them for a few weeks.
No, I don't know if you've been. I don't know if you've gone. Have you watched it back on the TV, or are you purely just going off?
No, I haven't. I watched the main event and the Swerve match back, but I haven't seen the rest of it.
Because that was it. Immediately on commentary, they just signposted to that right away. They were like, "Oh, he's hit an official. He'll be suspended for a few months now, or something." And I was like, all right, there you go. Just give you it like there's, spoon feed you the fact that he's going to be disappearing yet again, kind of, and you just like, fucking hell. Can we get a bit of consistency with this guy? Come on.
What a great line from Simon in the chat. Yeah, big substitute teacher energy from Daniels. Nobody takes him seriously despite his get-up. That well-dressed sub-teacher who comes in and you're all now, we're just fucking around and playing games today. We're not actually learning anything. He's not our real boss. It's like, yeah, 100%. That's what he is.
That's why all the faces are pretending to be heels and all the heels are pretending to be faces. It's like back in the day when you used to say that you were the name of the person sat next to you and stuff, so they were calling you the wrong name for the whole lesson and stuff. It's like they're almost doing that again.
Did you ever get that teacher who just called you the wrong name and you just left it? Just let them do that. Like, they always get me and my mate Ian mixed up. I was Ian to my maths teacher. Mr. McDade. Oh well. R.I.P. and peace.
I'm still bad at that now. There was one of the dads in Sadie's football team that I let call me Gavin for about 4 months until he realised by osmosis because I wasn't going to pick up on it and tell him. You
don't look like a Gavin to me, mate. I'm not having it. Not having it at all. What would you give it star rating wise? Again, I think the work was good. In theory, it was, I don't know, 3.5, 3.75. It wasn't bad.
I went 3.75 on it because I didn't. Maybe watching from my TV and enjoying limb work a bit more. I did enjoy I did enjoy the detail and match structure of a bit of that, but certainly not beyond that.
Good news for you, mate. You got about 12 other matches that had either a shoulder or a leg work. And those agents earn their money, don't they, in fucking AEW? I was thinking of you in the crowd. I was like, oh, God, I'll be loving this pay-per-view. There's a lot. So, yeah, we go from there into up next. Sorry, I lost my notes. There we go. Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay talking the highlights of the night. Tell you what, like, it's funny. It's very convenient for us, I would say, Gareth, that like the wrestler who appeared at our live show also happens to be the best wrestler in the world, or at least one of the best wrestlers in the world. Because like you'd like us, we like to be journalists with integrity, and if we can call ourselves journalists here on this podcast, Gareth, and we are not biased. We will call a spade when things are bad, but fuck me, like watching this in person, every time I get blown away just how good Ospreay is, and getting to witness it. Where I will push back earlier on when I said like he's almost booking proof in this company, but every time I go to one of these shows, like he's always probably the most over on the show. He's always the one whose merch I see the most at the shows. Like they were selling that Bruv football shirt in the stands there. I've seen loads of people wearing that. The Americans absolutely fucking love him. And he goes out there and like just has matches on a level above anything else on any of these shows, which is to the detriment actually of some of the matches we're going to talk about later on. The knock you can give to Ospreay is that maybe, like Bryan Danielson, he can be too giving, and maybe he wants to lose more often than he actually should. And I think maybe he's one of those wrestlers who, like Bryan Danielson, you maybe have to sit down and go, no, you're fucking winning today. Stop it. But I said it on the preview I did with Steph. Like for me, this was one I would accept. I think Kyle Fletcher is clearly on the up. Kyle Fletcher is completely undamaged goods in AEW. There are so many people who they're trying to push right now who've just done nothing for 5 years, or have been up and down for 5 years, or have been face heel or whatever. Kyle Fletcher is untouched, is completely changed his physique. Like I saw him in person. It was just like, I've noticed it on TV, but in person he looked a foot taller and a foot wider. Like, he looks gigantic. The shaved head really works for him. He looks like that, like what happened with Swerve, where as he moved up the card, he put that weight on. Kyle Fletcher, not quite main event level yet, but he's getting that main event physique. And he's got that little bit of momentum that I would absolutely justify putting him over Ospreay. I'd have Ospreay get his win back, because Will Ospreay is still Will Ospreay, and you go to those buildings, and he is absolutely, like Swerve, like Handman, somebody who should be a main character and you should protect. But like, Ospreay gave him both a strong win here, which I think the Kyle Fletcher character needed at this point in the feud, but also gave him another like classic Will Ospreay match on this one. Like, it was just unbelievable from the start when they ran up like the announce table, the Rana thing on the outside, through to some of the near falls in this thing. It was just next level wrestling, and just the most captivating stuff watching it live in person. I absolutely love this one live again. I hope it came across on tape as well, but it was one of those just great times where Ospreay is in peak performance mode right now, and Kyle Fletcher is somebody on the rise who you want to give that little rub to, and it was perfect timing for him as well. The match he needed and the result he needed. So it was a really excellent bit of business, this.
That's it. I'll come back to your caveat at the start, because I almost feel like, because of Ospreay showing up at the live show, you almost feel paranoid about giving him praise now. Like,
we called him a cunt for a few years,
coming through this and giving it. But like, I mean, the reality is he's the best, isn't he? Like he's in terms of in ring, in terms of the way that he's like getting crowd interactions at the moment. People clamor. Go with him on the mic as much as they do, like when he's, when he's having matches these days. And I think like the major thing that like this was a very clear demonstration of, again, is just that like continued development that he has. It's almost like he's, I think you were talking about this the other week when you were talking about Danielson, and you were saying about like when he went to WWE, and it's like, oh, okay, so like I've got to do like mic work here, so I better get better at that. And then he did, and he became like, it's almost like as Will Ospreay was, you've watched him just, obviously we've seen him from the ground up to get to this point. We've seen every facet of him through indies, through to getting his first hint of stuff on New Japan, to becoming like one of the, top guys in New Japan, been having the best matches in the world. We follow that journey, and it's just that development and that growth in all areas, like every aspect, be it on the mic, be it like in the in-ring work, be it selling, being piecing together matches that are, tell like a good story through them, through to, making other people, because what he did for Kyle Fletcher here, like Kyle Fletcher, it's is definitely like improved. He's definitely on TV, been like put in some good situations. But as the bell rang at the end of this match, Kyle Fletcher just looked like an absolute threat in AEW. He looked like a guy who, this is somebody who's been like, is on an unstoppable course to the top, as somebody the age he is, with the, like you say, the size he is, the level of work that's like gone into this match, the needle that was created between him and Ospreay throughout this match. It's, he's almost like made a star in one night there as much as bloody Tony Khan's made in 5 years, 5 years, with just like the construct of one match there. And I think right down just to like, I would say the full details of everything from this match from the start, like Will Ospreay coming out looking like Frank Castle, the Punisher, like if he shopped in All Saints, kind of with the with the coat thing. It just looked like, it was just. I thought
that was the one negative for me. I didn't like the pants. I
thought it was a cracking look for him. I thought Ospreay looked great in that in that get up. I really liked that. I thought Kyle Fletcher looked fantastic in the trunks as well. Like I thought, he really suited that. And then the black and white going off each other there for that looked great. Then just some of the things where just the detail of them as they were taking like their ring gear off, and just been like staring at each other, like right into each other's face as they got the gear off. I was just like, fucking come on. Like you could just, that intensity was like palpable through your TV screen there as that was about to set off. Like I thought that was great. And then just with the start of the match, it'd been like you've had that slow kind of eye to eye as you're just getting into your ring gear, and then just fucking bang straight into each other, sprinting at each other to start the match, right into it. Like it just got you from the off sort of thing. It just there was no question marks at all about them being friends still or anything like that. Ospreay had this intensity in him. I thought his ring gear that he chose added to that like intensity and seriousness and things like that then like aligned into the way that the match started as well. So like absolutely loved that. But then I just thought I think the general like construct of the match, I think Fletcher sort of dominating, going after that damaged neck and shoulder like early on with lots of the attacks that were coming into there, where he's whipping him into the buckle. There's a brain buster on the outside. He's clubbing and stomping him on the back, and as he's doing it, he's like Ospreay's hurt on the mat, and Fletcher's sort of just cockily playing to the crowd like for a bit of dominance there. But you then had that opening the door for Will to hit some offense, but in like crumbling off the handspring somersault off the ropes sort of thing. So showing that vulnerability, showing that the damage to the neck that they'd done with the previous attack on TV and things like that weeks earlier and stuff. It all just played in nicely immediately into the match. I think Fletcher's like moveset around that, going to like the Dragon Sleeper and landing the Michinoku driver and things. Things were just like pieced together just nicely to just like play off that being that like early setup, and then you then sort of filtered back into that idea of then Will took back the control overall, where he avoided the kick to the corner, kicked it Fletcher off the apron, then he landed that sky twisted press to the outside. So there was some good like some good high spots there just to put that back over for that level of control. There was a spot I loved here was where they were trading chops, and then Ospreay put his hands behind his back to invite Kyle to chop him, and then Fletcher super kicked him. That was brilliant because it just made like you just bought in. You thought like, oh, here we go, they're going to trade strikes, and then just bang, super kick, and I was like, oh, what a brilliant spot that was for that character that Kyle Fletcher is right now at that particular time in that match as Ospreay's fighting his way back, back into it. I thought that was ace. I thought like you then like had Ospreay sort of trying to escalate things, where he was trying to go for the odds cutters early because his knee he's taken a lot of damage, he's hurt, he's having to try and land some like big offense there, but then like Fletcher countering on him because he knows him, and then but thinking he knows him, but then Will still having like a lot of the answers to come back the other way when Fletcher was hitting a bit of offense on him. Will had a lot of the answers and a lot of the counters for Fletcher's offense there, and then you did have a big run of although Fletcher had been on top, Will was able to dominate by landing some counters, landing some big offense. I thought that was fantastic. Just building through to the spot that I could go bullet for bullet on this match like I do on Bretro sort of thing, but I'm sort of fast forwarding ahead here for the sake of the show, but where Will hit that hidden blade to the face. And it was, he sort of doesn't cover him properly because he can't really cover him properly because of the way he's hitting it. He's just sort of lying over him. And Fletcher kicked out there. Like, I wanted to be in the.
You would have believed that was a finish.
Yeah,
because that was a Shawn Michaels staple, wasn't it, in the Jesus run, where he get that last fucking pin, and it cost him eventually, didn't it? But you know what I mean. It feels like I've given everything I can give. I'm just about squeaking past him, pinning him. And that's why it's the perfect near fall, because everybody bought that it was the end of the match. Yeah, the reaction was crazy for that.
And then in turn, that then just followed into the next sequence so perfectly as well, because that's when like Ospreay, he has had a lot more control there. He has countered a lot of what Fletcher's done. He has hit some big offense, and then Will's then trying to take it to the next level, and he's where he's like. He's sort of frantically kicking and stomping and punching Kyle in the neck and shoulder, and then he goes to hit the Stormbreaker on the apron.
I love that, by the way, just to say, before the Stormbreaker on the apron, like go for it, those punches just felt like were perfect because he's the babyface, and he's so frustrated that he just starts digging him. and it felt like there was you don't want it to go full like people start feeling sympathetic to Kyle, but there was a little bit of an anti-Will sentiment in that moment. It was like, come on, mate, you don't have to do that type of thing. You know what I mean? It's like you're above that, and people booed it a little bit, like not too much where it would swing the momentum in the wrong way. But I love that little detail where Will was just annoyed / frustrated / just felt like digging him, and it's the least effective thing you can do, but it was just what he needed to do in that moment.
He's desperate. He's hit like a lot of stuff, and he's banged up himself. He's
so on him.
He's having to resort to this to try and win. And I just thought it was that placement of it then where he goes to hit the Stormbreaker on the apron, and Kyle slips out of the back, and tombstones Will from the apron to the floor. It's like it's that desperation and it's that aggression and it's that trying to take it to the next level that's ultimately cost him there, because that's when he's in that mindset where he's like oh, I'm gonna fucking Stormbreaker him here on the apron, and that ultimately cost him because he's sort of taken his eye off the ball a little bit there with the desperation there. Like
I think people in my section didn't realize the steps were there on that tombstone, because it looked like they just went to the fucking end of the earth on it, like the reaction that got, because it looked horrible when I watched the clip back. I was like, oh, it wasn't as nasty as it looked from the stands. It was actually like well done, but yeah, that was a big moment.
Oh, and then when he then gets him back in the ring and like Kyle hits that tombstone pile driver, and Ospreay's right arm is just hanging down when he's upside in the tombstone position because of all that damage to the neck and shoulder. He's sold it on TV in the weeks before, hasn't he? About like holding the baby and holding the kid, and I couldn't like feel my hand and stuff like that. Just that nuanced, simple, small bit of detail. It's like a great sell there, and and then his kick out where he just about rolls out at 2.99. That was like class there. That was like perfect.
I love that shoulder roll. That just slow, like that's like it's not even a kick out, really, is it? It's just brilliant.
And that's it. Where that then added to this, that just added perfectly. That kick out just added perfectly into the finish there, where Ospreay's gone here and he's just hanging in at this stage, and then you had that bit where like Fletcher sort of like arrogantly, cockily kind of like applauded him after he just rolled out of that as well, and it was like Fletcher knew I fucking got him here, like kind of thing. Is the tanks on empty, and that whole run through to the finish there, and when he lands that fucking brainbuster on the top buckle for the 1, 2, 3, like. It just felt perfect. It felt like the perfect ending for this, and I can see in the chat, comments about like putting other people over, and Ospreay been the focus of the promotion's efforts. Ospreay's he's getting Fletcher over, but he's getting himself over with performances like this. You often talk about you can lose and still win. Well, he's losing and he's winning here because of the I think the quality of that match, the intensity of that match, the fact that what he's given Fletcher there as an opponent, and it's not like this is one and done, isn't it? Unless it's classic AEW, you'd anticipate now that they have the second match that Ospreay wins. It might be a stipulation of some sort or not, or you then obviously get the rubber match. This has got potential to be one of the greatest trilogies of all time if they base things off the back of the way this first match went, and then you then get your two matches that come off the back of this. I really, really, really enjoyed this.
For me, I'd have the caveat, so it's Will who's saying in the chat, it's too soon for Ospreay putting people over, and Ramen back it up that he's not even been in the promotion full time for a year, which is wild. It feels like it's longer. I actually think, in theory, I agree with that. I just think this is an exception. Or it should be an exception, and that's maybe where the issue comes, where there'll be another one of these in 3 months, or there's been other occasions like this where when you wanted to put Swerve over in the run to the title, you can be in danger of doing too many of them. This one I'm fine with, again with the caveat of, I imagine, as you say, Ospreay beats him back eventually, but it just looked at it, I suppose, in silo, whether people agree with that or not. He couldn't have put somebody over any stronger, and I love that. Like, it's funny, and I'm glad you went through all that detail. You're the best in the game at doing that stuff and being there live in the building. Sometimes you watch a match and you get swept up into it because you're there. It's more of an emotional thing, I think, when you're there live. You're not necessarily taking all of the individual story beats in, as well as someone like you can pour over there. But the bits that came across to the crowd there, and obviously it was clear in the storytelling on TV there, was that how Kyle had him exactly where he wanted him, and in a match where excess was the order of the day, and there were a couple of big kickouts that maybe some traditionalists might not like. I might have gone negative on the match if that brainbuster was one more kick out, because I almost had that feeling. I was like, don't, lads, this is perfect. This is your perfect punctuation on the match. This is something we don't often see outside of, Sami Zayn, El Generico. Completely unique spot that could be a near fall, but should be the finish based on the story you've told all the way up to this. Who was I to doubt it? Because it was the finish, and it was the perfect way to just end the match and make it definitive and give Kyle like that. Not just that I hit one move and I beat you. It was 2 steps. It was that he'd basically beaten them already. He got to enjoy that. He got to have that shit-eating grin and then just do the formality and beat Ospreay at the end. Like, it was just perfect as far as getting somebody over. And again, let me keep saying, I hope you're right and there's a trilogy coming and not that Kyle Fletcher gets left off World's End now. Because that could happen too. But like, yeah, I haven't seen much of a better job of doing that.
Oh, and just you saying that then about at the end, just something just came into my head as well. It's when right before the brainbuster where Fletcher he head kicked Will in the back of his head, and Ospreay sort of fell back, and Fletcher was kind of like cradling his head, like he was sort of falling back, and it was like someone holding a baby kind of thing, and he was just holding him there, and it had gone for this idea of Ospreay was the master and he was the student, like, and it was like, no, like I'm the dad now, and I've battered you, kind of like it was like I'm in full control here, like
I am with you and Alex one day, mate. When he turns 18, he'd take over.
Yeah, I look forward to that when he boots me out of the house. But, fucking.
Isn't it mad though? I was saying there was a journalist I forget his name now, who sat in front of us, who was asking about Kyle Fletcher, and I was like, I'm not quite JP. I wasn't there for his first match, but we were probably there for his second or third, and we all watched it happen. And it feels like, when Ospreay first blew, there was an amazing bit of audio from the flagship Voices of Wrestling, where Joe Lanza was like, remember the name Will Ospreay. Everyone's going to be talking about Will Ospreay. And obviously, because we lived it and we were here, we knew already, but the Americans didn't. And he was the first notable one who was like, no, this is the guy. Then Meltzer got on it, and then other people got on it. And it was just so cool to see that and to experience that and be like, this little secret we all had is now big across the world. Same with Kyle. It's fucking Kyle Fletcher, who we saw in Aussie Open tags in shite attack shows and Fight Club Pro and wherever.
Well, I was thinking when Davis came down at the end to sort of protect Ospreay at the end, I was like a proud Tuesday Night Graps dad there. Ospreay, Davis, and Fletcher. I was just like, this is wild. He used to turn up there in fucking Tuesday nights in Manchester with 90 other people or whatever, and just watch them fucking dicking about with inflatables and all sorts. And Ospreay's bloody taking the tickets on the door and things, and now the 3 of them are there, just like in second biggest promotion in the world, and just on the back of just having an absolute banger of a match like this that feels really next level and feels really important. It's sort of validating.
And wrestlers take on like proteges all the time and try and help them, whatever. You can see so much of what Ospreay does well as bled into Kyle Fletcher, from spending that time with him, from living with him, and from clearly working and training with him. Like, he's passing that on to him, and yeah, I don't think it's overblown. I think it was Tanahashi that was early on to Kyle Fletcher when he worked a rando tag with him and was like, that's a guy right there. He spotted it very early, a bit like Liger used to do with a lot of guys. Yeah, it's there, and I think everyone's seeing it now. So yeah, the future is bright if they stick the landing. But we'll see.
And also is just, I think I say this every show that I'm on now, like where we're reviewing the big fucking Ospreay match on the pay-per-view, but like amazing selling from Ospreay throughout. Like never forgot about it. No. Yes, you have your moments of fire where you're like hitting stuff and you're coming back, but it's still small details like the arm on the tombstone, other things throughout the match. that story running through the match and how it was so effectively delivered. And yet you still see people out there online, and when they hear Will Ospreay, they talk about flips and moves, and you're just like,
did you see Wei Ting's tweet? Oh, sorry, Blue Sky post, whatever you call a Blue Sky post. Something about like, if you didn't like that, go pleasure yourself to George Hackenschmidt or something. It was very un-Wei Ting. I very much enjoyed it.
But honestly, the people who would still like that, they don't realize how great he is at so many facets of wrestling, and it's mad.
What would you give it star rating wise before we move on?
4.75.
I almost was going to go 4.5, but that was like hedging going. I think I'm going to have to watch this one back because I didn't get a chance to. I rewatched the last two. I could lean that way, yeah. At least 4.5. 4.5 plus.
I was going to say, if you get this on your telly and you get yourself immersed in the details, obviously you've got the live experience of it going on in front of you, but like.
Oh, if you asked me after the match, I'd say 5. I just came down from that because everything's 5, as CCK know. When you're live in the building, you're way into something. But yeah, maybe I'll look at it again with a fresh head. But unbelievable, the clear highlights of the show. And again, I think I was less negative than most going into this pay-per-view. That matches will still be good. This was the one that was very clearly on paper, and it delivered. Was the match of the show. But yeah, from there, a lot of people in my section ended up in the toilets. So I didn't actually see this. Mina Shirakawa and Mariah May. I was getting a refill. They didn't have any root beer on draft, unfortunately, Gareth. So it was just another Diet Pepsi for me. From the dodgy little machine they have there. Bit of a refresh of ice. Got a new top on it, new straw. Was very happy with my little stretcher legs. Went the loo, lost my media pass, and then came back. You tell me, was it any good? I don't think it was. I did actually lose my media pass. Hopefully nobody stuck in afterwards.
Sounds just like you, that.
Yep, that's me.
You're in a foreign country, you're going to lose something or get fined for something or something like that.
I used to do it to do XW shows. You know what it is? I've seen like too many bands live where, it always looks cool. You know, when people wear like the backstage pass up here, it looks a bit nerdy, but when they like attach it to like the jeans or something like that, I attach mine to my jeans like a fucking idiot. Steph has only just forgiven me for that, but I managed to get back to my seat, so it's fine. It's fine. I had a ticket. It's all right. I wasn't going to press it anyway.
Well, you didn't miss much with this one, yeah. The championship celebration. I think the best thing that I can say about this is that it was an extremely good decision to place it right here after the Ospreay Fletcher match being as good as it was, because sometimes it can be, obviously, get a match like that, especially in the middle of the card. It's you can't follow it, sort of thing. So having a angle, essentially has been something to follow it, to maybe give the crowd a chance to have a breather, or maybe get them to think about something that's not a match. Then definitely well placed. I mean, in execution, obviously it's they set up the Mina Shirakawa and Mariah turning on her, and spearing her off the stage, and then there was sort of the spot with Shirakawa bleeding to the mouth and wiping it on Mariah's forehead. Fine, I guess it's a story. It's storyline development. It was that the spear off the stage was reasonably well executed. The sort of bounced off the first part before they went through the tables at the second part. But it was a nice diet Coke break for you, and a nice kind of bring the mood down in the arena moment. I think with something a bit different with that, but it's that commitment to a bit of story to take them to this match, which again is something they've done well in the women's division previously in the year. So it was good to see them try and give something storyline wise to Mariah May here that was physical and was a bit more violent to it as well. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
If that was good placement, and it was coming after what was clearly going to be the near 5-star match of the night, what I thought was terrible placement come after this. Like, these next two matches did not stand a fucking chance. We'll start with Daniel Garcia and Jack Perry, which was for the TNT title, and this is a great victory lap moment for you, Gareth. I think the whole world has realised there's nothing there with Jack Perry. Whatever it is, it escapes this man. He doesn't have it. He just doesn't. He's a guy. He's got no presence. Like, I felt like that watching him live. I was like, oof, what a pretender. He's getting, and Steph pointed this out to me, and she's absolutely right. He's getting CM Punk chants at him, and people want to go, oh, that shouldn't be happening in AEW at this point. Or, what has happened to the fan base? No, his entire character is built around showing the footage of CM Punk punking him out on TV and him becoming the scapegoat. They played that footage. They created this character. They made it what it is. And that's the only real heat he got during this. And Daniel Garcia, I'm high on. He said himself post-match, this should have happened a year ago. He's absolutely right. It should have. It feels very late to get to this. It feels almost like it was promised to him in whatever renegotiations he did with AEW. We are finally going to give you that TNT title run. I'm interested in what he does with the belt. Immediately into the Continental Classic isn't necessarily what I thought would be the one for that, but they love doing that, but love putting people with belts in those things. But yeah, the positive out of it is Daniel Garcia beat Jack Perry, and there wasn't an argument to go the other way. Jack Perry should just go away for a bit now. I just don't think this homeless man driving a van around the world or whatever the gimmick is with the Elite.
It's Otto from The Simpsons, isn't he?
Yeah, like you get the petrol from the other cars and spitting it back into his one. That's what he's doing. He's Otto without the charisma, mate. What is going on with Jack Perry? I didn't mind him when he was a good-looking young lad who was an undercard baby. So had a really feel-good entrance theme. That was fine. He's not up to the task, I don't think, and I think Tony Khan's the only person who thinks otherwise at this point.
Do you know what? He always was just an entrance theme. I'll live and die on that.
Really good entrance theme, though, Gareth. Come on.
Yeah,
we played that in Rudy's one night. Put it on the jukebox. Incredible.
How many people have we saw into shows though in the past that were over with when they had the real music, and then when it flipped and
entire promotions, mate.
Yeah. Suddenly when they can't use the real music anymore, oh, actually, yeah, look what we've got and look what we're left with, and that's I think that's a bit.
That's what happened to the weekend show when we drop Party all the time, mate. Everyone be like, "That's crap, this
now."
I don't plan any if I can help.
Yeah, anyway. No, never. I just felt like this just backed up kind of, everything I've said about Jack Perry for as long as I can remember now, and it just felt like it felt like going back to it in this match, because there's nothing there. He's got two things: he can put his arms out like that, and he can be the worst low rent Raven impersonation act that you've ever seen when he's trying to do that, and he can do his little smirk to the camera. His one thing that when he first did his heel turn that actually for 1 second made him look good and people bought into, and then that was it was when I realized that was all he had in his locker a week later or 2 weeks later from the heel point of view, and it's literally all he's had to lean on this whole time. And you say Tony Khan not realizing it. I think Tony Khan has realized it. I think that I'd be surprised to see that if he doesn't disappear off TV for a while now. And again, this is one where something needs to be re-engineered within from a character point of view, and he can go back to being lower mid card tag act or something like that, because that's ultimately what he is. This is
the world needs ditch diggers, Gareth. The world needs it. You need people to work at Mackey's. You need people to do the jobs that not everyone wants to do. You can be an open act.
Yeah, you can be a nice, good-looking lad who comes out and has a 10-minute tag match to open the show and does a few high-flying spots and things. That's okay. I don't need to see you getting pushed up the card and people believing that you're going to be a main event, or certainly not believing that you're going to be a pillar of the company moving forward. I think we're a long way from that. I think what we did see though is what they've got in Daniel Garcia, and hopefully I think they do realise what they've got in that, because you talk about the Continental Classic last year. That was something that he delivered really well and came across, put into the role that he had in that particular tournament with the defeats and things. But it showed that he could get the crowd behind him when he, been a bit more serious. I thought he worked great in this match with what he had to play with Perry. I thought like towards the end of the match there with the whole the Daniel Garcia will not die kind of ending to the match that came through here was fantastically delivered there. I think the spot that stands out for me was where he Perry went to kick him, and he caught the leg, and then he gave him a pile driver with his leg hooked, and it was for like a 2.99 count. That was a fucking great. That was a fucking great spot. I was less keen on the 9.9999999 count out spot where Rick Knox expertly had to make the gap between the last 9 and 10 last for about 6 seconds before he had a chance to,
like there's like
to
4
get back
of
in
them
the
on this show. Yeah, or at least across the TV this week. Jesus.
Yeah, that didn't work. It works so great. But then when he at the end where he hit him with the pile driver again and then put him in the sharpshooter, and then when he pulled him back to the middle and he cinched it in really, really, really deep, like to get the tap at the end, just looked great. It was a fantastic moment.
It's a Kurt Angle thing though, isn't it? It's like where when he'd do like the ankle lock and then he'd sit down with it, and you just think, just sit down from the start. Why bother? Why do the pretense? I know it's wrestling, but it's like, just do that from the start, mate. You want to beat him already. Bit of drama though. Bit of drama. He feels like one of you, Daniel Garcia. Like, where does it feel like? I don't know. I feel like Wheeler Yuta, maybe his stock was never as high as we all thought it was. Daniel Garcia, he's on that edge between being like Private Party, too damaged goods to do anything with at this point, or a Sammy Guevara, too damaged goods to do anything with. He's just on the other side of that where all is not lost, and performances like this, and hopefully going forward, like in the Continental Classic last year, are gonna be the thing that saves him and allows him to get, because the booking's been okay since he's come back, but not great, has it? Like, remember you're supposed to be feuding with MJF, funny? Like, what happened to that? He stopped caring about that. Like, he just moved on and hasn't really been a featured act on TV. He just needs to be a consistent presence. Just consistently. Your world champion shouldn't be defending every week. There's loads of things that shouldn't be happening every week. But if every Dynamite, with odd exceptions, had Daniel Garcia somewhere at the top end of the first hour, having a nice little TNT title defense, or obviously like the Continental Classic coming up, where that is no coincidence. That is where he had the best run of his career, where he was just featured every week, wasn't he? Just having matches. He's one of those wrestlers. Like, again, world needs ditch diggers. World needs mid-carders. World needs upper mid-carders. Not everyone needs to be the main event guy. Some guys can just be a workhorse in the middle of the show, and that can absolutely be Daniel Garcia, and it's not a hard thing for him to reach if the booking is consistent going forward.
And to that end, we've talked so many times on here about like the lack of tiering, the lack of structure within AEW, the lack of ability to move up and down.
I think we were the first on that. Everyone says that now. Everyone says that there's no carve for you to climb. Everyone's equal. Everything gets treated with the same level of importance, from the world title program to the mid-card program. Everyone's saying that now. Where were they? Like, back when the feeling was still there. It was like, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I was like, no, there isn't a structure, because there's no discipline and nobody's actually plotting these things out, and things don't feel more or less important than each other. It's just stuff like that. That is coming home to roost now.
But I think, again, maybe the one positive of the Jack Perry reign, I would say, is that the TNT title now feels very clearly defined as a mid-card title, rather than being something that was higher up there and elevated when say like Christian had it, when it felt like, this feels like the most important belt in the company because of how well he was doing. I feel like if Garcia can have this now, and he can have a long reign on TV where he can win and win and win, it gives him the opportunity to be that guy in the mid card who can kind of like step up. And I'm not drawing this direct don't take this comparison literal sort of thing, but the idea of like Brett with his IC title, and him being somebody go out there and have matches and have good matches with people and win and win and win, and people get used to seeing him win, and him being seen as somebody who's as a level on the card, who's getting better and better and better and growing. And obviously Garcia's still got age on his side. He can still fill out a bit more. He's a decent enough looking lad and things like that. That he's got a lot of things that can go his way. Like, he's somebody who really they should, if they've just recently signed him to a contract, I don't know how long the extension was and things like that, but there should be a big like mark in the calendar there of like, right, we want this guy to be a main eventer by 18 months time, and this is how we're going to do it. Because he's, amongst all the mush in the company, somebody who's got a lot of attributes there that they can play with and build on. And this
should be in the small print of the contract. Year one TNT title run.
Yeah.
Year 2, let's pretend the international title, whatever is higher, or the continental one is higher. Year 2, that. Year 3, pay-per-view main event. Year 4, this. That should be or at least the goal, whether they achieve it or not, and they might not achieve it. He might not achieve it, but that should be what you're looking at with the young guys with a bit of promise. Absolutely.
But in classic AEW fashion, like Garcia sort of celebrated with the crowd, and then he had like the AEW flag, but it felt like people were going, get to the back, kind of,
Yep.
next match. This was to me, this could have been an AEW moment. This could have been Garcia just given another 3 minutes kind of thing, center of the ring kind of, Matt Menard didn't even get off commentary and come, like, it could have been in the ring with him, and you know what I mean? Like there's things there that they could have made it an iconic image, but it was quick, get out, go around, get to the back sort of thing, that they didn't let it breathe in the same way that after the end of the Nigel Bryan match is the most recent example that jumps into my head. Right, next kind of thing.
Yeah.
They need to get a bit more disciplined. This about, people talk about WWE's just moments. Well, moments are good for a reason. Like,
Things
people
need to
remember
matter.
them. People like care about them. It's something that sticks in people's heads and their hearts. And like, if you don't give people that, then they forget about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there you go. Positive for Garcia. But speaking of that, and I noticed it more in these last couple of matches, Gareth, it really was a speed run. The structure of this card, Takeshita versus Ricochet, yeah, because obviously you're like, Takeshita Ricochet is the lower card version of Ospreay Kyle Fletcher. It's the same feud. It's Ricochet in the Ospreay role, and arguably Takeshita should be higher up in the totem pole than Kyle Fletcher, but they're of the same stable, same knobheads on commentary, same stuff. So if you do a pay-per-view in any other company in the history of wrestling, down to your local indie, where like there's 2 matches from the same feud and one is clearly bigger than the other, you put the smaller one on first. You don't make these lads have to follow like Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, because as good as Takeshita is, Ricochet's best years are clearly behind him. And even if you had high expectations for this match, and I had relatively high expectations on it, it was always half a star lower than Ospreay and Kyle, or a star lower than Ospreay and Kyle. It was always going to be the inferior version of that match. What are you doing putting it on later in the card? Like, I'd like to say, because we can disagree with the thinking behind some things they do in AEW. I just can't tell you what the thinking is here. If there is any thinking, there probably just isn't. Is probably the answer here, because they had no chance. And to be fair, the work didn't help them either, because they went out there and worked a half-speed version, at least in the early stages of Kyle and Ospreay, and obviously it didn't have the emotional resonance or story or selling that had. But it was just worked really kind of half-speed. And then they went out there. It felt like, and I promise you, I said it at the time I saw the tweet. I saw Ibu say the same thing. I said to Steph, feels like we're collision here. This feels like a late in the night collision match, and that's exactly what he said on Twitter as well. And that's what it felt like. It was like a 3.25 star half speed collision throwaway match between 2 quote unquote work break guys, where we say this is where the best wrestle, and then we never remember the match again. And that would have been okay if it was second on the card. What was it doing here? We had way too much left on the card to be bothering with this. Like, it just had nothing to offer for me.
Well, I'm glad to see you felt the same in the building as me, and there wasn't some like entirely different opinion, because like
everyone was knackered. People were just like, oh, what time? I know the Americans complain a lot, and again, there was a journal in front of me going, be seeing the time, and I was like, well, actually, it's usually 4 a.m. when I'm in the UK watching these. But point taken, yeah, people here are tired. Like, they've only got so much energy to give you, like, across a long card. You just have to make some grown-up decisions and make some cuts, or at least reorder things so that people aren't feeling like this. And this actively hurt, I will say, that the 2 matches that follow, that we had to sit through these 2 matches back to back. Like, what were you thinking?
Totally agree. And this was only added very late as well, wasn't it, to the pay-per-view as well? It's like, can't help themselves throwing another match. Why the card as a like, they need to start thinking about like the totality of things. And like, when I say there about like the Garcia moment, not having any time to breathe and like time to resonate, it's because quick, we've got to get fucking Ricochet and Takeshita out there. Like, why? Oh, because there's no real like like purpose to it for, then not appreciating the negative effects that it does have on like crowd fatigue, or like you say, like the similarity of one match to another, and it been in less than like this match did just feel like it was in slow motion. And one of the things that I absolutely hated about this match was that because of the dynamic of this match and the structure of this match, Takeshita almost had to work like a slow and lumbering big man here, like for Ricochet to be doing his spots. He wasn't there was nothing going back the other way, and Takeshita's so good, and Takeshita is so levels above like Ricochet that he shouldn't be put in a match or a scenario where he has to work in this way and not be able to, demonstrate a lot of the positives about him. Ricochet ate up so much of this match. So much of this match was like Ricochet on offense, and even where there was like a points where it felt like Takeshita was like going to hit a bit of big offense and take control. Like, no, like a minute later, Ricochet was like countering everything again and starting to like hit big stuff, but not big impressive stuff. Like just spots that were done in, like you say, half the speed of like Ospreay or Kyle Fletcher. And I think another element you touched upon, but like Ricochet just forgot about his back for 80% of this match. Like he took like a back injury early on that looked like it was, this is going to be a, key component of the match. Now, he remembered it at maybe the 2 or 3 times that he had to remember it, because it meant that he couldn't do a suplex or he couldn't springboard off the ropes because that spot was like that. Everything else between that, it wasn't related to like any fire or fighting spirit or adrenaline or anything like that. It was just him just forgetting about the fact that his but like back was supposed to be absolutely knackered with this. And again, you said that the crowd were burned out. Like maybe that's it. I just felt like the crowd just weren't with him at all, and I don't think crowds are with him. I haven't seen him get like a monster pop at like any show that he's been at. Like his name pops up on the screen, and it's like, oh yeah, Ricochet, and he's doing stuff in the match. He's hitting like big high spots, and people don't seem to. People are just like, oh yeah, like he honestly, I honestly don't think he offers any more than. In fact, I think he offers less than like a Dante Martin or something like that these days in terms of in ring, because he can't talk. He's got no natural. He hasn't got any real charisma about him. There's nothing, something that jumps out and stands there. Yet he's presented and booked like he's some absolute superstar. And like when I come back to that point before about Ospreay's growth and development and things like that, you think back again, broken record. I've said this before on the show, but you think back to Ospreay Ricochet feud in New Japan, and you take them two and you go like, okay, let's fast forward 10 years and let's see how they've both progressed and developed from that point as like a time capsule. Like Ospreay's better in absolutely every single facet of wrestling, and Ricochet doesn't seem to have got better in any areas that he wasn't so good at then, and he's actively got worse in the areas that were his best bits, sort of thing. So like, fucking stealing and living for me. Put him in a tag team.
It's that lack of discipline, isn't it? Because you can make the argument like you could 50 people on this roster. Well, why wouldn't you want a Ricochet on your roster? If he's available, why wouldn't you want him? Well, you wouldn't, because there's, like you said, there's many other people who can fill that role in the roster. Like it's the lack of discipline of, we have to sign him because he's available, or he's going to become available, and we have to bring him in. And that was why I was such a big booster of doing the Ospreay match early, because this was always going to happen. Like he was always either through his limitations now as a performer, which he's still good enough, but there's a ceiling for Ricochet at this age in his career, but also just through the booking, he was always going to slide back down the card. Is he in any better place really in AEW than he was in WWE? And is that appropriate? Probably. It's like the Claudio argument again. One of those rare times me and Matty agree, where it's like, he's a great little guy to have on your card, and people get over. Oh, he should have had a world title run. No, he shouldn't. There's a certain role that he can fill at your card and do it really fucking well. Ricochet, it's a different argument, but same thing. Like there was a certain role in WWE that he filled. He was the guy you throw out for a nice little Raw match and you move on. He's now the guy you throw out for a nice little collision match and you move on. But difference is AEW have got 20 wrestlers who are younger and arguably better than Ricochet, who can fill that role. So, yeah, he really, really needed to overperform what everyone's expectations were to have any chance of surviving in AEW, and he hasn't done that, unfortunately. And it's just been 3.25 star match after 3.25 star match, and the placement didn't help, and the setup didn't help, and I really did think, like, to be honest, I was, when they added this to the card, I was like, oh, it's Takeshita though. Takeshita will pull something out with him. It'll be in a card that maybe looked like it was lacking outside of Ospreay Fletcher, a big match of the year candidate. I had higher expectations on this, but it was more a Ricochet match than a Takeshita match, unfortunately, and it had all those things against it too.
Yeah, 100%. So I think you said 3.25. I was 3-star on this. Like it was
professional wrestler match, wasn't it?
Yeah,
which was just not needed to the point in the card, because I would say it hurt what came after it, because I'd made the joke earlier on the night to the guy who sat in front of me, like, no one's getting as big a reaction as Big Boom AJ, and he's like, oh, you wait for Swerve to come out, and I've been at like arenas for a few AEW shows now, and Swerve's one of those people, as you're leaving the arena and everyone's like just like making noises, doing Ric Flair shouts or whatever. Whose house? Swerve's house is a big one at AEW shows. Like, that man is over with this audience, and the guy in front of me was like, oh, he'll get a bigger reaction when he came out, but he didn't. It was quite muted because it was a tired crowd who'd seen a lot that night, and I do think it hurt this match because, yeah, Lashley and Swerve, which came up here next, it was good, but I really think they've got better in them. I think maybe in front of a less tired crowd. I think maybe if they'd been a bit ballsy, I wasn't the first to say it, but I think after this long show, if you were going to go as dominant as they did in this match with Bobby Lashley and Swerve, I might have just had the bollocks to Brock Lesnar. There is the balancing act of Swerve's had a lot of losses recently, and maybe that's the thing, somebody in the room kind of said, don't know about that, lads, I don't think we've got to give Swerve a little bit more than that. But in hindsight, I don't know whether that was the right move, because like they got there eventually. They told a good story. I thought Lashley looked good. I thought it was the strong, definitive win that he needed to establish himself in AEW, like the Fletcher Ospreay thing. I don't think Swerve should be taking so many losses, but first chapter of a story that it clearly has got Swerve's fingerprints all over it. There's going to be another match, and then there's probably going to be another match, and there's more of this story to come where I think Swerve will end up on top, so it's absolutely forgivable. But yeah, I think you've got to at least early put the monster heel over, and they did. It was effective, just not maybe as engaging as I was hoping, because this was one that I was really looking forward to on the night. And outside of that banger of an entrance theme that the Hurt Syndicate have got, which is the We Hate People thing, that was getting over as a chant. The babyface run they have one day, that's going to be a really, really over thing. I was actually listening to the theme on my flight home. Might well be the outro to this podcast. There's definitely something there. I've really enjoyed the presentation of this feud, and I think this was a good, effective match one in what I imagine is a longer term series. What say you, Gareth?
Yeah, I thought this was good. I thought this was everything it needed to be for not just match one of their feud, but just like proper match one of Bobby Lashley and AEW as well, because they,
why did they wrestle on Dynamite? Why did they do that?
So bizarre. Like, why?
They didn't even advertise it. I didn't know about it till the day after. I was like, what? Lashley was on Dynamite last night? Hey,
save it. Like,
this should have been the introduction.
Yeah, but as an introduction, as a real proper introduction, again, it was delivered so well, especially because he's up against a recent world champion, and then he just looked so dominant so early. Like, I thought they were going to Lesnar it when you saying there about whether they should or not. I was genuinely thinking, fucking hell, they're gonna and what a impact that would have made with the crowd. As it happens, though, I think the overall execution of things, I think, worked for what they needed it to be. Like they protected Swerve enough, and Lashley looked dominant enough, and then I think with the the elements of like people on the outside and things like that as well, it sort of it played into it nicely without it being too much kind of as well. It was just enough for it to count and come back the other way. So I thought all of that worked really well. Some good spots as well. Like I loved the Swerve stomp through the announce table, like the delivery of that, where like Lashley sort of was, you have to get yourself into that position, don't you, to take it, and then
natural.
And then he moved like he was trying to move out of the way or something like that. So it just fit. The timing on it was was bloody brilliant the way that was executed.
Don't you think that, like, for a match where Swerve didn't have much, everything he did hit had to be almost like twice as violent, twice as impactful? All of his little hope spots like that were very impactful and very memorable. It's like, if you're going to lay out a match like that and make it 70-30, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and I think he hit the offense that he did get to it was big offense, wasn't it? As like as well. So
Heyman Pills, it kind of was.
So, yeah, so that really worked in well to that. And then I think with the end as well, with it being just like the passing out in the hurt lock as well, just got that move over as well. You know, again, as where Swerve's, you know, he's been in matches where he's kicked out of fucking everything under the sun, as recently as well. So for him to lose in that way as well was kind of like good and fitting. That he's then passed out under that side. I think the fact that he was sort of he was on top of it, and it was that MVP delay just sort of getting in his face on the outside. He didn't need to hit him, or anything. It was just slowing him down, just jawing him a little bit, like in his face, that just bought that little bit of time for Lashley to then belly him on the floor. Thought that was executed really well too. So, again, it just, like I say, it was just enough really when it came to that, level of outside interference to make it meaningful, like open the window rather than it being some kind of like dastardly attack or something like that. So all in all, I just thought, spot on. If this is chapter one in the feud, definitely open to see a bit more of this, and open to see Swerve's dark side get unlocked a bit more as he has to deal with someone who's dominated him so convincingly here.
They had some speed bumps in the last couple of weeks, but by far the best thing in the company right now is this, and it's the presentation of the Hurt Syndicate. Everyone playing the role. I'm quietly like, you know what? We might not get a Shelton X Benjamin run in this Continental Classic. We might, based on his performances so far, I'm actually half looking forward to it. And I was never a Shelton Benjamin guy. He's been great. Lashley's been brilliant. MVP's been fantastic. I've always rated MVP, but not even to this level. Like he's outperformed what I thought he could do as like that guy there. So they seem motivated. MVP even raps on the song. I don't know if you knew that. The last verse is MVP himself. He can rap too. They've been brilliant, and Swerve's been very given, and it's clearly a Swerve passion project to do this. Absolutely loved it. Thing I didn't love was to do another heel beat down after the match. Like, it's like, come on lads, have like a fucking, Tony's got enough spreadsheets, like figure out, we've done this already, let's not do it again. Although it was impactful, again, the finish was impactful, Lashley getting the stoppage with the headlock. Doing it to Nana was, a nice moment, and an ooh-ah moment for the many people, I'm sure, who watch AEW don't know Prince Nana was at a ROH stalwart as an in-ring wrestler. It was good, but I just wouldn't have done similar-ish stuff earlier on in the night. But yeah, Peel came back for more again.
Yeah, it's that kind of discipline that we've talked about before, and you probably even referenced it, earlier.
This is where it's important. Do it here, just not elsewhere. That's all you need to do. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, good bit of business all in all. As a match, don't really know how to star rate it. Really, it was like in achieving its goal, very high rating. As like an art to pit a star rated match, I don't know, 3.5, 3.75 at a push. But it didn't need to be more. Didn't need to be anything else. It was what it should be.
No, I've gone 3.5, and it was a very good 3.5. It was everything it needed to be, and it was, I think, the execution of what it was absolutely perfect. Bang on.
Yeah, some would argue that should be 5 stars. Then we're not getting into that conversation now. Next Wrestling with Philosophy, maybe in January. We went from there into the AEW World Title match, our main event with Jon Moxley against Orange Cassidy. Start off, I've got to say, I was sat in front of a kid, or next to a kid, who was so into Orange Cassidy. It actually made me realise, there's clearly something here. Like, there's a certain type of fan who clearly absolutely still love Orange Cassidy, and he's not damaged goods to them. But going into the match, this whole thing felt damaged goods. A rave about the Hurt Syndicate and how well that's been presented. I think the opposite is true of the BCC. It's Jon Moxley, as I've said a couple of times, is the actor giving a Oscar level performance in a movie that doesn't have an Oscar level script. Like, he's been great in, if you just take in isolation what he's been like, the overall story's been a mess. Orange Cassidy is one of those people who, again, they've had windows those where they could have gone, all right, we're going to make you the serious main event, Orange Cassidy now, and they didn't take them, and therefore you can't, it's Boy You Cry Wolf. You can't do it again. Nobody in their right mind believed that Orange Cassidy even had a chance here in a main event. It wasn't a pay-per-view main event. But all that said, if you had to do this match and you were gonna lay this match out in front of a tired as fuck crowd who'd seen a lot that night, this was almost like a miracle at work. This made me think, oh, maybe I should vote for Moxley in the next Hall of Fame. Like, I didn't think it was possible to get the crowd into this as much as they did. It was the blood, it was the immediate violence, it was the urgency. But I really thought they laid, if you were going to do this match with a challenger that people didn't believe in, there was only one way to get it over, and they did it. I thought the work in this was outstanding, mostly from Moxley, but Orange Cassidy was great as the babyface as well. Just a really, really effective match that going in, I didn't give two fucks about.
Yeah, I was really positive about this, and I think as you say, it's that disbelief going into a match where you don't think the challenger can win. Like that's always a struggle, and especially when it's a main event world title match, when you don't think that the challenger can win. They did a fucking good job though at turning that round and making you believe. And as you say there, I think the general sort of structure of the match there really sort of bled into that. I loved it. Like Orange Cassidy is someone who, I get it. I like what people like about him and things like that. He's not a me type of wrestler sort of thing, but he can, on occasion, he can be somebody that I can kind of, buy into and enjoy a bit more. And I think just the start of this match, like I was with him, like the hot aggressive start that like he come there where, you hit him with the orange punch during the ring announcement and then follows it with a couple more and then the Turkey Suicide. I was immediately just like, so hook, line, and sinker. I'm into this. Like, right, where's this going?
It's the only way to start it in hindsight. The only way.
Yeah, and it felt like you saying there about the crowd. It's interesting to see it because it did feel like, wow, they've just gone like, let's let's get this straight up. And the one that came into my head when I was watching this was when we were at Wembley and it was the Mercedes-Moné match for that, where they needed to do something like that early on to get the crowd up because everyone was tired and the crowd was a bit flat and things. And then they tried to, if they'd tried to go and have a slow start to this match here, I can't imagine they'd have ever got the crowd back for this. So it was just that perfect example of just fucking wham and, off to the races, and the crowd are invested within 10 seconds, 20 seconds of what's going on there. And I think, again, I'm not going to go through all like the different bullets and everything that's, went on through this match here, but I think Mox turning the tables very quickly and then him, started to dominate and him started to sort of like very physically and nastily dominate with a lot of the things where he's doing, like he's pulling Orange, around the ringside by his hair to set him up to, hit him with that kick in the chair, where he's stomping him into the steps and, getting the blood like early with the orange juice I've written down here as the nice little dad joke there for you all. But then I think the general, that physicality, Mox taking it to them levels, biting the forehead, biting the cut, is like the little things. It's the standing on your face, grinding your boot into the face. That sort of like nasty style dominant that he's throwing in there when he sort of like mounts him and he's throwing fucking elbows at him, like absolutely elbowing the shit out of him, on the outside, where he's where he's biting the fingers, when he's, putting him face first into the steps and things. Like there's just that level of taking it to that like horrible, nasty place with someone like Orange Cassidy, who is ultimately fun cartoon character babyface, being ground down to this level that he's been absolutely destroyed and bullied by this, horrible villain. It was just a lovely dynamic that they built between the two. But then the fact that the babyface is then so defiant and still standing up to it in the face of it all, Mox is giving him all that stuff, but then Orange is in the ring and he's is saying, "Come on, like give me more." I think that side of things was where, and he's then getting beat up and battered even more. It just kind of makes you just get behind him that that little bit more when you had things like the scratching spot in the corner, and then Orange is then. And then when Orange is then scratching him back as well in reverse again, it's just that kind of like act of defiance as well. You're doing that to me, and that's actually drawing blood for the first time I've seen that happen on that move. That was cool.
It's like apron spots in it. They all works the Newark because we all know that actually hurts. Like it just gets that different level of reaction, but also because you can see it. You could literally, because they had like the glad they came across on TV because the big HD screen, you could see literally the line forming down the back of Orange Cassidy as Moxley's nails went down, as well as the skin coming off, as well as the blood coming. Like that was just, it's like, it's a great little spot that actually it worked really well. And obviously, the turnaround with Orange Cassidy worked great too.
Oh yeah, and then I think when they sort of like built into a bit more, then following the Defiance, when they built into a bit more of the Orange sort of like hope spot here, where he landed like the diving DDT from the top, and then he followed that up with the tornado DDT, and then it looked like he was going to be at land like the orange punch. Then they went back to sort of like the more Defiance with he's telling Mox to hit him and then doing the hands in the pockets thing, and then on the back of that, getting the couple of orange punches and the Casadora for the 2 count, and then the beach break for the 2 count. At that point, we're like, whoa, the fucking, this has come back the other way, and you really felt that wave. I thought, like coming through your TV of people getting behind Orange at this point, and this idea of like it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't almost traditional fire and will not die kind of thing. It was, I keep using the word defiance. It almost was this defiance in the face of evil. Like, not you won't beat me kind of thing. Like I'm gonna keep coming kind of. Like no matter what you throw at me, I'm still gonna be there. And then when they then built that into the interference spot where Orange, wallop Moxley with the case for the 2.99. I felt, again, you tell me as someone who was in the building, I felt like they built that, they bought that in the building. Like I thought when he hit him with the case and then he covered him, I was thinking he's won, and then I thought the crowd thought he's won as well, and I was thinking, or am I just thinking that because I'm thinking he's fucking won it? And then the kick out was brilliant on that one.
I was sat there thinking, why are you all believing this? But people were. They absolutely were. People stood up and way into it. And I was like, come on, really? But that's what can happen when you get swept up into that emotion of it. And the baby face is as good as Orange Cassidy is. Overall, he's damaged goods. Overall, I don't ever believe he's going to take that next step. But in the moment, when the work is that good and he's that fiery and underdog babyface, you can leave the brain at the door, can't you? And kind of just go along with it to enjoy the moment and enjoy the match. Yeah, it maybe give me a little bit of doubt.
Yeah,
which you thought was impossible.
Maybe it's that whole idea of you never know what fucking AEW is going to do.
That's true. It's like the Derby one. I can't explain it. In that, the booking when they do the Derby match, the booking doesn't lend itself to it being believable that Derby would beat Moxley. However, the real life ineptitude makes you believe that Derby could beat Moxley, and very well that could be the plan going forward. It's a weird dichotomy, isn't it? It's unearned within the context of the story, but you just never know with this company. So I guess that's the other element of doubt. The booking is so bad that it's actually almost a positive in matches like this. You're like, could happen. It could happen. Juice Robinson could be the next AEW World Champion. I don't know. It's always possible.
They've maybe just decided to abandon this story already, or something like that. That's something that you can always kind of buy into there. But then obviously, following on from that, it was pretty much immediate to the finish, wasn't it? With Wheeler hitting the Psycho knee and then Mox hitting the Death Rider for the 1-2-3. Don't know if it needed the Wheeler part, but hey ho. But all in all, over
Cassidy's going to be. I like Orange Cassidy, but he's going to be on Collision wrestling Wheeler Yuta in 6 weeks, whether you protect him here or not. He's not going to be main event in another pay-per-view in the next 3 years, and if he is, it's not going to make him. It's not going to make the company any money, and it's not going to make any difference if you overly protect him here. Despite all the great magic tricks they pulled to make this work and believable, you just don't have to protect everybody. Moxley should have just won. He should have just won.
Yeah. No, I think so. That was a black spot on the finish for me there. That was, especially with the level of dominance that he'd had throughout the match, and he's huge fucking dominant world champion at the end of the day. It didn't need that, but I say over delivered for me, better than I thought it was going to be. I've gone 3.75 on it. You know, I've like really thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, what left me at that point with a reasonably good taste in the mouth at the end of the picture.
I'm glad you stipulated at that point, because yeah, as well as all the interference and nonsense and the conglomeration turning up, which here come the jobbers. Rocky Romero getting a spot off the top rope in your main event of your pay-per-view, like no one needs that. We didn't need that in ROH in 2004, not here 20 years later. I was higher on him back then. But this post-match, I genuinely don't know what you make of it, what you think of it, but like, for me, there's been a few things on this card that sum up AEW as a company, and I think this cavalcade of stuff that came afterwards completely sums up the company. Like, from Hangman Page and Jay White. I mean, Page comes out, and there's a part of me that picks up and goes, oh, okay, I'd like to see Hangman Page and Moxley go out at it again. That does actually sound like something that would be a bit me, with, payoff that was at the Revolution match that they had that was so good a couple of years ago. All right. Then Jay White comes out, and it's like, hang on, Jay White's a babyface, or maybe I'm getting the order wrong, because Christian
was next. Yeah,
Christian, yeah. Like, and I'm just like, okay, I see in principle what you're going for. You're going for like one of those, like it's like they've been doing it a lot on TV recently, those ECW things where like one match bleeds into another, into a promo, into another match. Like they're trying to layer it with all these possibilities and all these people who are gunning for Mox, but like, and it's on top of the fact that, I've even mentioned it, we're coming off Wheeler Yuta and John Moxley trying to like pour petrol or Drano or disinfectant or whatever it was down Orange Cassidy's mouth, just throwing all these fucking things at you to tell you about all these challenges, all the way leading into Darby Allin crashing into a car that had nobody in it. But it was it was impactful. If you're going to do a WWE car angle, and they fucking love a WWE car angle, cars is another contender for the possible theme of this show music wise. Like, okay, that was as believable as a way of doing it, but add that in on top. It was just this cavalcade of stuff, and I'll let you go into the detail of it, but for me, it just summed up, like, do I actually, based on where everybody is in their current position, am I supposed to care about like Christian versus John Moxley? Like, if from the start, Christian just feels like, why is he one? Why is there a Money in the Bank contract in this company? But two, why has a heel got it while there's a heel champion? Like, that's just not really that appeal at a match. Jay White, as much as I like him in this current babyface role, that's not an appealing match against Moxley. And Hangman just being there, like, I'm still kind of confused as to what he is and where he is, or where he kind of fits into things. Like, it was just a lot of stuff where it was just like, this company is so messy right now that I just think, I feel like everybody up and down the card is either in the wrong feud or in the wrong disposition or in just the wrong place booking wise. It was messy by design, but it was messy in execution for me. Like this stuff, and most of it I'm not that interested in. Again, Moxley Darby, yeah, you can buy that, but Darby might beat him. But that's just because I've got so little faith in the booking. It's not because I actually buy Darby in that role. Like, that's another one. It's just for me, a lot of unappealing stuff of miscast people in all the wrong places, and that's AEW summed up right now.
Yeah, and what it did do as well is it just played into a lot of the confusion or that we've talked about as well. Like, even right back into that Hangman Jay White heel face dynamic that they've that they've struggled with there. Hangman comes down and you're like, oh, Hangman's lost to Jay White, so he's coming out for the he's coming out to face off with the world champion who's a heel, and he was a heel. So, Hangman's turned face, and the crowd pop for him like he'd turned face or something like that at that moment, and then they have their little face off. But now he's Christian Cage, who's been a pretty serious heel within AEW for a while. Massive pop because Christian Cage is there, and is he going to cash in? And suddenly, like, he's getting like a real positive pop, but he's a heel, and now the crowd are reacting positively to him. And then Jay White comes down, and it's like, well, well, wait a minute, how does this fit? Kind of thing. He's just beat Hangman Page, and then so now he's he's got a bit of history there with Christian Cage, but why is he even in the ring now? Why? What's his purpose? Like, why does he want to stop this from happening? Like Dot's just not joining up and just making sense there. It just felt like what a fucking clusterfuck. It felt a little bit like doing EWR at like a younger age, where you just suddenly like, shit, oh fuck, it's my big show next week, like shit, and I just need to like get some, get all these people in the ring so that I can make it make sense that they're then together on the following show or something like that. It just felt like this horrible acceleration of trying to bring things together that had no single connected thought between why they all should be there at that point, when then in turn the ultimate payoff or the ultimate finish to the whole thing is Darby Allin outside anyway. Like, you just needed somebody to run them off to the outside, not connect 3-4 other people into that thought process. Like, so badly executed. And then so I went from feeling really, oh yeah, maybe there is legs in this Jon Moxley story at the end of that Orange Cassidy thing. I enjoyed that match, if they're then feeding challenges like to the end of that, just feeling like this company is fucking stupid. Like, it's just clueless. Like, that's the way I just felt at the end. I was like, this is the worst, the worst tropes of AEW, like, coming to total play at the end of a pay-per-view. Talk about not making you want to tune into Dynamite on Wednesday as opposed to making you want to tune into Dynamite on Wednesday. Fucking unbelievable.
It's just unappealing as a product right now, and none of that to me is appealing. Anything that's coming out of that, and I shouldn't like joke too much about it. Like, it was genuinely like Darby taking, driving that car himself and doing the stunt bump himself, genuinely impressive. Like, if you're impressed by that type of thing, and I am based on my Instagram followings, but like, he's a madman, and it was impactful, and it got a good reaction in the build and such like that. But it's not really a match I want to see, and it's just a lot of stuff I don't necessarily want to see. I say as a whole, but yeah, I think for me that kind of summed up the show. It's a show where there's booking that we were all questioning going into it, that I think coming out of it I don't feel any more positive on. But like we constantly say about these AEW shows, the roster are going to bail you out. I just don't know to what extent they bailed them out this time. I think Kyle and Ospreay was good enough that like I don't come out of the pay-per-view with a completely sour taste in my mouth. I'm glad I was there. I'm glad I got to experience that live. There were other moments, through the night that I'm glad I got to be there for, and glad I got to experience live. But overall, it just came out as frustrated as I ever am about AEW, and frustrated as I ever am about the direction of the company and what comes next. And that's the ongoing question we're asking about all of this stuff. You can enjoy these pay-per-views in isolation, and maybe that's the answer, like for you dear listeners and people who are still watching along live with us here tonight. Like, I think if you have the option to, I think AEW has become the company where you can still mostly rely on the pay-per-views, and this was the closest one to possibly being a dud, but it's never going to be one when you've got this roster. But when it comes to the week-to-week TV and making sense of all this, and the bit that, the placement of all of those guys, if I had gone to the media scrum, I'd love to one day just ask Tony Khan just a direct question about like whether he notices that like every time a pay-per-view happens, the feeling is back, and then 3 weeks after the pay-per-view, as we're into another cycle of terrible television, and everyone's like, oh, the feeling is gone, this is the grey-brown depressing promotion again. Maybe you should possibly realize that that's where the problem is. The problem isn't the talent, the problem isn't the roster, the problem is everything in between it, and just continues to be a moody company that isn't fun to follow right now. Yeah, that's it. That's AEW in a nutshell. And yet you can have an Ospreay Kyle Fletcher match that, we could both be talked into going 5 stars on. That is the strange world of what AEW is in 2024, and it's not changing anytime soon. But unless you got more on the show, Gareth, like I say, that was that. There was a media scrum afterwards. Like I say, didn't attend it, mostly because most of the wrestlers were in kayfabe, although Tony Khan did say that he wants to get Big Boom AJ back, so that's good. He also said earlier in the week that he'd learned a lot on marketing from the Costco guys, which, I mean, one is kind of terrifying that a wrestling promotion didn't know enough about marketing that he's learning from the Costco guys. But two, hey, they marketed themselves. They sold their match. They sold this pay-per-view. I can understand why you'd want to get them back. But yeah, there wasn't much else newsworthy coming out of the media scrum outside of Lashley shutting down a question about black champions in wrestling, which I think MVP would have a different opinion on based on things MVP has said in the past. But yeah, that was the bit of controversy that kind of came out of it, and basically saying we shouldn't be counting people in that way anymore, which is a fair way to put it. But then you've got Tony Khan running down interviews boasting about the fact that they're the company with who've got the better record as far as pushing minority talent. Either way, that was probably the most newsworthy thing coming out of it. The other bit of news that came out obviously was on Sunday. Speaking of an unorganized company, Gareth, unlike the G1 where we get the people announced way ahead of time, for the upcoming, i.e. this week, Continental Classic, we finally have our list of people in it. They did a bracketology or whatever they called it show last night, of course, in the prime time of 10:30 Eastern time on a Sunday night, and announced 2 hours before halftime on a Sunday night. We don't know anything about when the matches are, who's facing who. That's just going to be made up on a whim, I'm guessing, as we go, because that's what AEW do with their TV. But yeah, your reaction to the blocks for those who haven't seen it: Gold League, Will Ospreay, Juice Robinson, Brody King, Ricochet, Claudio Castagnoli, and Darby Allin. Blue League, Kazuchika Okada, Kyle Fletcher, Daniel Garcia, the Beast Mortos, Mark Briscoe, and Shelton Not Ex Belgian. Any thoughts on that?
That's the first time I didn't
Feelings
know.
back.
Yeah, I didn't know about them blocks, but Block B, that sounds like there's some interesting, like, unique, different little matches there that could be, good work. And I think last year's tournament was really good, and and I think obviously a lot of that is based on asking some really good wrestlers to just get in the ring and have matches based on they're trying to win matches and trying not to lose matches, kind of thing. Which is, hey, it's what's a good recipe for success, that, and making something quite entertaining. So fingers crossed that's something that works out positively this time. I just hope they're a bit more kind of definitive about how things work towards the end with the belt and things, because that it becoming a title rather than a shot at the world title was always felt like an error to me. So I guess anytime something like this crops up, I'm always kind of hoping that you might get some form of, I don't know, is Okada's in one block, is Takeshita in the other block? I'm hoping that there might end up in a final where they merge them two belts. Is Takeshita not in it?
No, after all that teasing, as the comment says there on screen on Twitter. Nope. No. I'm guessing they're doing Ospreay in that role, and we get an Ospreay Okada maybe. That's the confusion, isn't it? Like last year, it saved AEW TV at the tail end of last year. And then this year, I still think it's a good thing to have, like, to just tie the TV down and just have consistent good matches with purpose behind them. But it is lessened by the fact that Okada's in there, that he's the knobhead with the stupid belt that's apparently up for grabs in this entire tournament, which probably gives away the game that he's going to be the one going through to the final. It's just who on the other side of the bracket he ends up facing, which I'm guessing is Ospreay, and they're going to play off their history. I'd say that side of the bracket, the Gold League, it's probably got a couple more of the matches I'm interested in. It's hard because AEW does so many good matches that, there aren't so many fresh ones left, but just looking at that on face value, Ospreay Darby Allin is something, just a wild little matchup that you'd only get in the tournament.
Ospreay Brody.
Ospreay Brody, Ospreay Claudio. I think there could be Claudio, obviously a great base for Claudio. Darby and Brody we've seen a million times, but if you're gonna do it again, do it in this tournament. Also Ricochet is there is kind of the gold block. Also Juice Robinson is there. Actually, he's as much as I enjoy him as an undercard comedy act in AEW, he has stunk up many a G1. So I don't know necessarily what he's doing there. I would have preferred that to be a Takeshita type wrestler. But yeah, Blue League. Kyle and Okada, I suppose, if Okada can turn back the clock and not be meme Okada.
It's the non-Okada stuff. It's the non-Okada stuff that I'm looking forward to here. I'm thinking like Mark Briscoe against Mortos. That'll be boss. Like Shelton Benjamin and Kyle Fletcher have a banger there. Daniel Garcia against any of those lads. I just think there's a few matches there that when you take Okada out of the mix, just will just be some fun 10-minute matches, 12-minute matches in that block. But yeah, I'm just disappointed that there isn't an opportunity to merge Takeshita's belt and Okada's belt in the final of this tournament. So that's what I was hoping for.
One. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what was teased last year, and then they ended up splitting the belts up again. But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it did really turn things around last year. I don't know whether it's got the same height. It's missing an Eddie Kingston, for example, this time round. But some nice little matches in there and stuff to be
Jay White's
definitely
not in it, is he?
Positive. Who's that? Sorry,
Jay White's not in it, is he?
No, he's not. Which probably, do you reckon he's the contender for World's End instead of?
He must be, mustn't he? Yeah.
Derby must be actually. Yeah. I wonder when they're gonna get to the Derby match. Maybe it's coming out of this actually. Yeah, that makes more sense. There we go. Good luck with that. But yeah, that's kind of the lineup. Maybe feel a little bit positive about AEW, although we did have one other negative AEW news as we were recording tonight, or a little bit before. Sean Ross Sapp has said, according to Fightful.com, remember that AEW Australia Stadium show that every Aussie you talked to told you was a bad idea? Apparently it's going to be moving to another venue as predicted. They were never filling a gigantic stadium in Australia, where AEW aren't even on TV. But God loves a trier, as a few people have said in our Discord already. All in Texas might well be next, although that one I'm a little bit more bullish on. Doesn't check me though. Downsizing should be the order of the day though. Obviously, it's funny, when I was at a Full Gear, we had I didn't see him, but I think Joey Janela was knocking around, and there were a lot of GCW people flying for their Manhattan Center shows coming up, which AEW have stolen their thunder by running the Manhattan Center at the around those Christmas shows. Final Battle is there, and a bit of ROH TV, and a Dynamite and Collision, I think, is coming from the Manhattan Center at the end of the year. But that should be a bridge for AEW to learn that lesson, and you just can't keep running these cavernous arenas. They do need to acknowledge the size of company they've kind of unfortunately become due to mostly unforced errors, and maybe help those Dynamites by just making it feel a bit more like a hot ticket again, and making those arenas feel more like the Full Gear arena did for at least the first half of the show, where there are people who want to see AEW.
No brainer. Like other than it's a from a TV presentation standpoint, I can't see any reason why they wouldn't be doing this when there's so many empty seats, and then when you see the impact it's having on the environment and atmosphere of your weekly TV products. Like, if I had to give AEW some ticks in the right box in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, I feel like they have put a bit more focus onto some people like Brody King and Garcia and Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher, and there's been some people who they do feel like they've had a bit more. Okay, let's focus on some fresh faces. Some let's give them a bit more focus, push them into more prominent positions. What even now? You've got to give the opportunity though is for them to be in front of crowds who are actually slightly hot, who are going to react to what they say in promos, who are going to chant along to certain things that catch on. If you've got 10 people doing a chant in some cavernous arena, it's never going to catch on. If you've got 10 people doing it in an arena that holds 1,000 people or something, then it will catch on, and you will create that atmosphere to your product. The idea that they don't or can't see this, they should be out there on totally unique looking smaller arenas on TV. It would just aid their product so much. But I think it's just it feels to me like it's a fucking ego thing or something. It's the idea of if we stop running arenas, that means we are less than WWE, whereas in Tony Khan's head he doesn't think they are, and sometimes less is more, and you need to build back up from the bottom, don't you sometimes? Because they need to throw a fucking bone at some of these acts here and let them go out there and have a great match or deliver a great promo and not have absolute fucking crickets be the background to it.
Absolutely gives them the best chance of what I'd point now with AEW, where I think we're exhausting the state of AEW type podcast we can do, because there are no easy fixes, there are no quick. If they just do this, it'll sort it. Things are broken in so many ways. People's goodwill is gone in so many ways. kind of got to go back to basics, but I don't even think that will resolve it. We're in for a rough period. Maybe the Continental Classic will paper over it for a while, as Simon has said there. But yeah, no immediate fixes to turn things around, which I'm sure will be music to Matty's ears as we round out this AEW centric show. Do you want to talk anything about any WWE stuff? We kind of already covered it on the pre-show, didn't we? CM Punk and the Survivor Series stuff, and well, see, that's the thing. Even WWE, when they do stuff that makes no sense, because that makes no sense. Like, why is Jonah Rock in the Bloodline now? Like, I watched that angle on SmackDown. I was like, I mean, I feel like you could have just done a 4-on-4, lads. You didn't need to do a 5-on-5. But when you're hot, you're hot. You can get away with shit. And they clearly set up Seth Rollins to be on the other side, which was the only reason he was in that match. Nah, fuck it. We can just put CM Punk in that match. Like, they've got that. They've got that artistic, license to be able to do that and get everyone really excited about a CM Punk and Bloodline interaction. And it was. I watched that SmackDown back, as I said earlier. In the middle of New York and on a frosty, Friday night, and was just like, wow, like this is just the positive feeling coming out of that company. We can make fun of the way they tell their stories, and it's not always for us in the presentation of it. But CM Punk and Roman Reigns standing face to face was like, it was a moment. It was big. It did feel like, oh, you're rewarded for following that company, because you're gonna get that down the line, and isn't that going to be exciting when it gets there? They can't help but win right now. WWE, it's wild to see.
Anything they want, literally anything they want in the main event, like in the main event of SmackDown, and nobody will talk about the previous hour and 50 minutes of the show, and just like don't trip up. It was good to see the big star in the main event there, lifting. Well,
you were always a Jonah Rock guy. Back to the progress stage,
lifting the bloodline story up there, getting CM Punk involved.
Well, give us plenty to talk / argue about as yet. Next week's Spotlight, while JP is on maternity leave, will be me and paternity leave, isn't it? Me and Matty going through the Survivor Series show, which does feel bigger now because Punk is in there. Maybe he can bring a bit of the blood and grit like he did in the Drew match to that. Have you seen the Drew match yet? Still no?
No, not yet. I will. It's in my head, stamped in my head as something I need to watch before the end of December.
Well, grappies are coming, and crappies, so I should be careful. But completist you are. You'll be able to watch the whole of WWE by the end of December. But there we go. I think that's it. That's it for a show. Like I say, we'll have plenty coming up in December. Crappies. But November is not over yet. Like I say, me, Matty, and Hamflet will be doing our Survivor Series 2001 flashback review this week, and then we'll be right into December. Time is coming up. Christmas time maybe can be the unofficial title for that. But Crappies, Christmas Film Club, Ask Grapple at Christmas, all of the good stuff coming, as well as should be a retro coming out in the coming days as well, Gareth.
There is, we've got the show 11 all planned out to record for that one. No details as always. But we've got every show planned out for the next 12 months now as well. So if you're looking for an end to retro, don't hold your breath.
Brilliant stuff. People, nobody is wishing for that, and people will be made up to see it. So excited to get it. But hopefully people enjoyed this. Always good talking the AEW pay-per-views with you, Gareth. But outside of that, unless there's anything else to plug, thank you patrons, thank you live patrons, and thank you for your patience over this tumultuous period over the last couple of weeks. But we're all home now, unless Garrett's headed to Portugal again next week. But, there we go. That's dedication. You were right off a plane. I was right off a plane. I slept today, Garrett, from 12 p.m. until 7 p.m. Does that shock you in any way that is my current sleep schedule? God help me tomorrow, but I'll find a way. But we always make sure we get the content out there. But thank you, patrons. Thank you, everyone else. Anything else to say, Gareth?
Enjoy your nap.
Thank you, mate. So we'll run for the next 24 hours. Thank you, Conor Lothar, Eddie Sandberg, Chris Black, Ewan Cameron, Carl Gack, Sam Mulvaney, and Mark Baldy. We will catch you again on the next one. What's by in Belgium, or what do Flemish? Is that what they talk? I don't know.
Au revoir.
Close enough. Good night, sir.
See ya.